We're
Oh, I'm not ready. Why'd you hit the button?
live now. You told me to go live. You
You
said
said
go
we weren't
live
going
now.
live. You said we were going unlisted.
You
I
said,
hit a button. Did it do
well,
anything?
yeah, we're unlisted.
I'll do it again.
We're not listed,
There.
but hit as many buttons as you want.
We are unlisted.
I'm hitting the same button over and over
You
again. Is
listed.
it doing anything?
Well, do you want me to? You want me
No,
to
I'm
give
just
the link
kidding.
out to
I'm just-
patrons so they can watch it live?
That would
if
be
they want?
good.
You want me to do that?
Might as well make them feel like they're getting something for their money.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, ha cha 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 cha. All right,
Are you
hold on.
doing it?
Oh yeah,
Well, now he's doing it.
Good.
you told me to do it, so I'm doing it.
I run one
Ugh.
show a year, and you just have to make it difficult. Okay, I can't. I can't. screw this
Yeah.
up.
That's how I do.
Cha
You know
cha
that.
cha cha cha.
All right. Anytime you want to go.
All right,
I
we're
mean,
good.
obviously.
we're good. All right.
Are we going?
I mean, why not?
Is
At this point,
This is the show. Yeah.
this is the show. This is what we're doing.
okay?
Welcome to the show.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Wait, is this your intro?
No.
Well, it was, and then you. He was going for like a homey, kind of intimate.
Homie, don't play that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hello and welcome to episode 892 of the Player One podcast for Tuesday, January 2nd,
Oh my.
the year of our Lord 2024.
Oh my God.
I'm your host, Greg Stewart. With me as always from Canada. From Washington.
You're the one from Canada.
Right.
Oh boy.
Phil Theobald.
Oh, it's me. Because I am from
That is
Washington.
big guy.
Hmm.
I'm currently from Washington. I'm not originally from Washington,
No.
but
Not originally.
No.
no, I hail
the-
from
Of the Illinois Theobalds.
the from the Chicagoland area, but currently, yes, the wonderful, great state of Washington is my home now and for the foreseeable rest of my life.
How you doing, Phil?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Jeez, I'm glad to hear it. Did you
had a
enjoy
nice-
your holiday season?
I was just going to ask you the same thing.
Oh,
Hmm.
well, let's do it at the same time.
All right. Did you enjoy your
Did
holiday
you enjoy your
season?
holiday season? That was close.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, me too.
What'd you get?
Oh, presents.
Show us everything.
Okay, well,
Oh my
Because
God.
this is an audio podcast.
you can
so-
see I have a Godzilla Hawaiian shirt that
Yep.
I'm wearing.
Yep.
It's very nice.
I have. You'll appreciate this, Greg. Look at this. You know who this is? You know who this is?
That's a Hound.
That's Hound. That's the Transformer character Hound. Walmart here. I don't know how this is handled up in Canada, but here in the U.S., Walmart has been re-releasing some old G1 toys, but
What?
in more of a the paint scheme is more in line with the animated series. So he's a little brighter. He's a little.
I need to go to Walmart tomorrow.
There you go. I don't know if they're doing it in Canada. I don't know if that's a. Check your
Is-
local listings.
But is there okay? See,
Yeah.
the thing is that. Oh, by the way, CJ's here too. Hi, CJ.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, that's him.
I'm also from the great state.
I
of
mean, the
Washington.
Autobots were the.
Single tail.
I love that you trailed off. Like the Decepticons were cool.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. And I mean, the Decepticon jets were cool,
Yeah.
but they were the same toy over and
Well,
over.
yeah.
And over again,
Yeah.
which is fine. But
Yeah.
the Autobot cars were where it was at.
And
So
you know what?
Yeah.
I never had Hound back in the
Neither
day.
did I.
No. And I was flabbergasted at how tiny he is. He's very small.
It's always strikes me because when they re-released the G1s, God, like 20 years ago now,
Right.
that was the same thing. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go buy because like Optimus Prime was out and
Right.
like Trax. I loved Trax when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
And Smokescreen was always my favorite.
Right.
But it's like I buy them and open them. It's like these are really small. Of course,
Well,
we
you know
were
what,
a lot
though?
smaller then too.
even among the Autobot cars, though, Hound is
Really?
particularly tiny.
Huh.
He's an itty bitty boy.
He's
And-
an itty
and-
bitty boy.
Just to, he has no articulation. His arms move.
Right.
His arms move, but because he's got these wheel wells here, this is as high up as his arm can go. He can only wield
Oh,
his
okay.
gun. He can shoot the ground.
I was gonna say, if you're right in front of him, he can
Yes.
kneecap you.
Such heroic nonsense. Pew pew pew.
That's pretty good.
How about you, Greg?
You know what though? He couldn't be worse than Ironhide.
Oh, and Ratchet.
Boy, those toys sucked.
Oh, and not the. This is not bad. Actually, Hound is great.
Yeah.
He's got a fun transformation.
Mhm.
He's in. None of the G1 crew had good articulation.
I found that Blue Streak and Smokescreen, I mean, their legs didn't. Their legs were just
No.
straight, but their arms,
arms
their
could move.
shoulders could go out, and
Yeah,
they
their-
had
their
elbows,
arms
and
could
their
move.
wrists could twist, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
they were
there's
good.
not much though.
But anyway,
Let's not pretend. Yeah.
listen.
What?
As much as I would love to continue this conversation, and maybe we should.
How
on the
about
after show.
how about you and I take this podcast off the air and just have a little Transformer talk, you and I.
Yeah, baby.
There we go.
I still have
Thank
those G1s in the box downstairs. I should take them out sometime. and-
You absolutely should
Play
set
with
up a
them.
display.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I did before I got married. That's where they were. They were all on a shelf.
Well,
Jeez,
get him back, buddy.
broke my heart. Maybe put away my Transformers.
Look, Jazz
But
didn't
then
do
I
that.
divorced her. So anyway, hey, listen,
What?
this is the first episode of 2024,
That's right.
It is.
which traditionally
Mm-hmm.
the first episode of any year is when we like to take a look back at the previous 12 months
Mm-hmm.
of video games and do our own game awards, so to speak, except we don't get paid for it and we have no sponsors
And there are
We're
no
better.
world premieres.
and no world premiere of our top 5 lists,
Or not.
except for you,
Not if you read Giant Bomb.
Jay.
Not if you read Giant Bomb.
So anyone who might not have done this already, Giant Bomb, our friend of the show, Jeff Grubb, actually reached out to all of us, I believe,
Yes.
and they have been over the last week, I think, running Game of the Year lists from various people. Like I think John Riccardi's on there, and
Yep.
Dan Shu is on there as well.
Chris Kohler.
Chris Kohler is
one.
on there,
hmm
and he reached out to us and asked if we would like to contribute a list, but he said it doesn't have to be your top 10 list of 2023.
That's
It
right.
doesn't have to even be anything about 20. The interesting thing is, and I don't know if he did this to you guys, but his suggestion to me was like, if you want to talk about the hottest guy in video games in 2023,
Yeah.
you can do that. He made that suggestion 2 or 3 times,
Oh.
which
But
was
see, he didn't suggest that specific example to me,
right. I figured
which
it was
leads me to
tailored.
think that
Yeah.
Jeff's tastes lean closer to your tastes.
Probably.
So he just
Yeah.
wants your input on that.
So anyway, that's a
No.
whole other series of articles we're working on. But
Hmm.
so I had no idea. I actually didn't know that Phil and CJ had been asked because we didn't talk about it. And then when we did find out, when we were talking about it in Slack, it was after we'd already submitted them.
Right.
And so I didn't get a chance to see them until they were published. And because I also got lucky this past week, just before Christmas, we lost internet in the house,
Yeah.
and it was out for like 4 days, 4 or 5
Which
days.
which for the record is why there was no show last week.
Well, no. CJ is
Well,
why there was no show last week.
No.
CJ's
It's
the
all
real
your
It was
reason
why
It's your
I
fault.
wasn't on the show last week.
Right.
Yeah.
There
That's another great exchange.
Yeah, Greg
But-
was really pushing for me and CJ to do a show, and I agreed.
Yeah.
But then,
And I said no.
I wasn't
I
going to
said,
name
hell
names.
no, I don't want to be on the air with that Theobald guy.
Wow. Wow. Happy holidays
Oh
to
my
me.
God.
No.
It went something like, hang on, I'm going to find it in our chat.
Okay.
When I said I can't really do that, CJ said, well, can't you just impose on Mike?
Yeah.
I said, I don't really
Good
want
friend
to
Mike.
impose on Mike.
Oh, he wanted you to go to Mike's house.
Yeah.
And then I said, please don't skip the show. And he says, find somewhere to record. And I said, I could phone it in.
Right.
I mean, and by phone it in, I don't mean be disinterested, because I do that every other week, but as in
Every
call
other-
in with my
yeah.
cell phone
Or you could go to a Starbucks
or go to a Starbucks.
hotel lobby.
And then
Yeah.
CJ just kept saying, let's skip, let's skip, let's skip. I said, I really wish you wouldn't. So CJ said, hey, because we're a democracy. Hey,
Right.
Phil,
Yes.
what do you think? And Phil said, I wouldn't skip, but I ain't no coward. And 20 minutes later, CJ says, okay, we're skipping.
Yep. Decisive.
That's what
Yeah.
my word means around these
Decisive.
parts.
The whole conversation took 3 hours.
Yeah.
It did. It did.
But as soon as I said, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and do it, immediate turnaround.
Immediate. Okay, we're
Yeah.
skipping.
Nope. No, thank you.
Yep, we're done. We're done here.
And
Yeah.
Phil, your line was great. Bringing that real. What do you want to eat? Anywhere but Chinese. Okay, let's go to PF Chang's.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably that's not Chinese.
That's fair.
Which was an actual exchange that we
Oh,
had.
really?
At
I
PAX.
think
That
you,
doesn't surprise me.
You might have been there, Greg. I
Yeah,
think
you
that
were
was
there.
during like
You
like
were there.
a PAX visit or something.
It was
Yeah.
like PAX 2009 or something.
Yeah, CJ was looking like, where do we go for lunch? And I said, I don't want Chinese.
I have nothing but happy memories of our PAX visits.
And immediately CJ's like, tell you what.
What was the story I was telling before we got onto this
The
topic?
giant bomb?
Thank you, Giant Bomb. So yeah, so I hadn't seen what you guys had written, but in
Right.
my mind, I'm like, I don't want to give him my top 5
Right.
because we're doing our top 5 show in a
Right.
couple weeks, and I mean,
But the
clearly we have a
audience
big
overlap
overlap
with
with the
Giant
Giant
Bomb.
Bomb crew.
We
Right?
don't have,
I mean-
I don't know that we have much overlap.
I'd say that Venn diagram's pretty big.
You
Like,
think?
there's a pretty
Oh.
big cross section.
Maybe
At least
two
what
people.
40%
Two
of
of
our
our-
listenership
Two of
reads
our
Giant
four
Bomb.
listeners.
So like those 12 people are going to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, they were all published by the time I got the chance to go and read them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I read mine first, obviously, because it was the best.
Of course.
Of
But
course.
then I read Phil's, and
Right.
I don't know if Phil gave away his favorite
I-
game of the year.
I will be honest. I did give away my game of the year.
Okay.
Mainly because I think everyone kind of knows. Anyone who listens to this show probably knows what my game of the year is because I've been dropping hints about it since, let's say,
Not kept it a secret.
January.
But with CJ,
Yeah.
not only did he give away his top 5, but he gave away his 5 runners up.
Yep.
It's literally just
Well-
the top 10 list. Did you write anything?
I did not, and
No.
because when
And
Jeff
see, that's the
messaged
other thing.
me-
I wanted an excuse to write like a nice big article about this game because I haven't
Yeah.
written like a video game review in years. So this was kind of like a fun exercise to kind of go back to my game press roots.
I didn't.
CJ,
I
what are you
didn't
doing?
know that we could write more than that. The request was, do you want to write a guest game of the year list for Giant Bomb? Rank your top 10 games or 3 best sports sims or the hottest hunks. It's up to you. I was like, well, I'll just do my top.
Do you want to
10.
get in on the separate conversation I'm having with Jeff about the hunk? thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do
Okay.
that. But so I just did my top 10.
No.
Although I will say,
I love that it was just
if-
a list.
Yeah.
Such-
if
This
you
is
read
the most
that,
CJ thing in the world.
if you read that, it may not actually spoil my list because I wrote that like 2 weeks ago. So
Oh, and things have
it
changed.
may
The
have
times
changed.
they are a changing.
The times
CJ.
may have changed.
CJ already forgot what that list was.
Exactly.
No, I didn't.
I did.
Giant Bomb and just see what
Uh.
I wrote. I will say though, we should say this up front. If any of us worked on any video games, they are automatically our number 1 favorites of the year.
And we will not be
obviously.
talking about them in this.
Of
Well,
course
CJ
not
might.
Humanity. They may have been nominated for other awards like Best VR AR Game, Humanity by Enhance. But they are not necessarily just to take it out of the equation that we're not biased or whatever. Those games that we may have worked on, Humanity from Enhance, they will not
The
be
way
part
you
of
keep saying that
play Humanity is what I'm saying.
makes me think maybe that you are a bit biased.
I mean, we all
should
are
go play that.
to a point.
Now, granted, my number 1 game actually did change because CJ slipped me a couple $100.
Uh-huh.
and
under
a
the
code
table.
for humanity.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's
Anyway,
that
yeah,
payola,
so-
that video game payola we keep hearing about.
So we're gonna do things a little bit different this year.
Are we?
normally we do our top 5 and we intersperse them with a few different awards. I want to change that up a little bit this year because I like the idea of us sort of grouping the top 5s together near the back end of the show. So
Okay.
without
You just
further
like
ado,
the back end of the show.
I love the back
wanna
end of the
say
show. You
that.
should join our Hottest Hunks chat. So we're going to start off and we're going to get the negative out of the way first as well.
Oh,
Because one of the things that we always talk about is what was your biggest disappointment in the video game
yeah.
sphere
Mhm.
this past year? And Mr. Johnston, we're going to start off with you. What do you have listed as your biggest disappointment? I mean, it might be on Giant Bomb. I don't know. We could just click on the link, but
That's true.
no, it's not. Hey, look
Okay.
at that. My biggest disappointment of the year is the PS Plus Classics library, like the PlayStation end
Oh.
of PS Plus. I feel like they're still neglecting some of their biggest franchises, their biggest classics on the service. And I mean, to be fair, anytime I log into Xbox, I know exactly what's new on Game Pass.
Mhm.
I'm bombarded with Game Pass on the Xbox in that experience. But for PS Plus, I got to go find what game trials have been put up or what classics have been updated. Like I have to find that. I have to like dig through menus to find that stuff. I don't really love that. And also I think they're doing a disservice to their PlayStation history by not having
I
a
would
better
agree with that.
collection.
Yeah.
Mm.
You have the NSO stuff, which a lot of people bag on as being terrible. I don't
Because
think
it
it's
is.
terrible. I don't think it's terrible necessarily, but it's growing over time and it outclasses what we have on
Yeah.
PlayStation, which shouldn't be the case. Like I really wish they would pay more attention to that stuff because PlayStation, they're the market leader for a reason. And I just think they have a lot of games that fall by the wayside, a lot of franchises that have fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, it's funny because for years we've always talked about how companies like Sega and Nintendo really need to start leaning on their back catalogs, and I think for the most part they have. They started to do a pretty decent job of it, although Nintendo likes to sort of take it all away and give it to you again in a different format
Sure.
every now and then. But Sony's right there now too. I mean, they've been in the game now for going on 30 years, and they've got some real classics in their library. And yeah, I agree. That, and I think like the Xbox and the PlayStation current generation discoverability on their stores sucks, and it has
Yeah.
since the beginning of the generation. But I agree that I think Xbox does a better job with discoverability on Game Pass.
Yes.
Sony
If nothing
does
else,
not.
Game Pass.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Sony's got one too many tiers in their pay services. They got to get rid of one.
absolutely.
They need to simplify that.
They
Big
do, and I feel like as a gold or a premium customer, PS Plus Premium,
And that is the highest tier?
that's the highest tier. I
That-
don't
that-
feel
see,
like
that's exactly the problem. Right there encapsulates
Right.
the problem with that. It's like, I don't know. Is it?
And they're
I
all
don't really know.
named like
it's extra and premium. It's
Yeah.
essential, extra, and premium. And I only know that because Humanity by Enhance, great gameplay get, is on the extra and premium
are
tier.
Humanity's sales down this week?
No, I'm just saying
Because
it's
you're
great.
really
It's a
pushing it a
fantastic-
It
lot.
won't be after this
it's a
goes live.
fantastic game.
It's a fine game.
No, we're doing a best user generated content of the year event.
Are you really?
that I like spearheaded? So
Are you gonna
that's
put
kinda
like
cool.
are you gonna put like a green classics banner on the side of the icon soon? And
yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh,
people
Yes.
won't want that on their shelves. I'm just saying.
that's true. You
But
want
yeah,
the
when you're
original.
trying to find like what trials have been added to PS
Right.
Plus, like you really
Yeah.
just have to check the list. And there was one week where they no longer put the newest game on there. They were only putting, I don't know what the order was, but it was not newest.
Mhm.
And it was like, okay, well now how am I going to know what are the newest trials? Like the whole
Right.
organization of the store is bad. But
It really is.
yes, PS
Yeah,
Plus
yeah.
stuff more so.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's
All
my
right.
biggest disappointment. It's in the grand scheme, it's sort of first world problems.
Yeah, but that's
But-
what this is all about.
Yeah,
All right.
By this you mean our podcast.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
for middle-aged white guys.
Absolutely.
Before?
Middle-aged, middle class. Oh yeah, sorry, 3. Feels like 4 sometimes. What about you, Phil?
Well, I'll tell you
Biggest
this.
disappointment in 2023.
My disappointment of the year, and it should be noted that we have all created these lists independently.
That's
Mhm.
true.
We don't know what's on everyone else's lists.
Mhm.
Nope.
But my biggest disappointment is also Sony related, but for a different malfeasance.
Okay.
Nothing new from Naughty Dog.
Nothing new from not. No, you know what
Last
it
of
is?
Us Online being canceled. Is that
It's
what
the
this is about?
fact
I'm okay
that
with
they
that.
forced Naughty Dog to stop having naked ladies as secret unlockable logo.
Yeah, baby. Rings of Power for life.
Greg knows what I'm talking about.
That's right.
No, my big disappointment this year is the fact that the PlayStation Virtual Reality 2 launched without an Astrobot game,
Ah, yeah.
which
yeah.
is absolutely
And we still
bonkers to
haven't
me.
heard of one coming.
There has been well, as far as I know, Sony has forgotten that they have a VR system.
Yeah.
God, yeah.
They really have not.
Which is too bad because the tech is
Yeah.
there now. I mean, it's so good.
Yeah. Because I really enjoyed the original PlayStation VR.
Hell, if they remade Astrobot and just re-released it for PSVR 2, I'd play it again.
Right? That's all they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different because they don't have the camera, right? And the light bar. They use a lot of the camera and light bar stuff.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying,
Astrobot,
though. If you
we can't
rebuild
really-
it based on
They'd have to rebuild it entirely.
using the PSVR 2,
Right.
there would still be some work, but
I'll throw this out. They
Yeah.
should have waited to launch PSVR 2 until they had Astrobot.
Yeah, they really should
well,
have.
see, I think they've because it was a Asobo. They did both games, right? They did that and the one that came out on the PS5. Was it Asobo that made this
It's
game?
not Asobo. It's
No? Who is
Asobi
it?
Studio.
Was it Asobi?
Yes.
Okay,
Asobo is
Asobi.
the Plague Tale Requiem.
Right. Sorry, Asobi. Either way,
Yes.
Team Asobi.
they've got now a history with like secretly one of the best platform game developers out there.
Yeah.
Clearly. I mean, the last 2 Astrobot games have been fantastic platforming games.
Yes, indeed.
So why are you not? I know the
Taking advantage
platformers
of
aren't
that?
as important as they used to be, but come on.
Yeah.
Or here's another thing I'll
And a great character.
go ahead and throw out. You've got Capcom doing Resident Evil Village VR, where you can play through the entire game in VR. They just released Resident Evil 4 remake entirely in VR. Why not do, I don't know, The Last of Us Part 1 in VR?
Yeah.
Or something like,
something.
where is your like full
That's
featured
too
VR
spooky for me. No,
experience?
thank you.
I
I
know
mean, I'm not saying don't do it.
it might not be for you, but I mean, there
But, yeah.
are. That's to me, that's sort of the next thing. Like, bring a console experience. Like, if you find you played the flat version or whatever, like, make it a VR game.
Still can't
And
get used to the flat version.
I know.
people in VR call it.
I know, I get it. I know that that's what it's called, but I still can't get used to it.
Yeah, but you have companies like Meta doing Asgard's Wrath 2, which is like an 80-hour VR game, and you have that Assassin's Creed Nexus game, which is like a 20-hour Assassin's Creed game in VR. Like,
No.
I think we've gone beyond the sort of tech demo phase where you can have a full game in VR, and Sony should be at the forefront pushing that forward, right?
Right.
First of
think.
all, with an Astrobot game. But anyway,
Yep, that's a good. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, Phil. I agree with that 100%.
Yep.
Yeah. Right there with you.
For me, I was going to pick a game on this, but I have to say, probably my biggest disappointment about games in 2023 is that we've had. I think you could make the argument, and I saw an article saying this, and they made a really great point. I don't remember all the years they called out, but there was an article talking about how this year, mostly because of the backup from COVID, we had so many great games come out, so many big games, successful games, games that were in the like there was no like if you look at the games of the year across multiple award shows and media outlets, like there's no clear runaway favorite, right? Because there were so many really high quality games that came out this year. They're making lots of money this year, and we've had so many layoffs. Like it's been a bloodbath this year, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
And the fact that as we even head into the holidays, there were a lot of layoffs happening there. That to me has been the biggest issue. I'm so tired of hearing about how healthy this industry is and having a year like this year where we've had thousands of people losing their jobs. And after a huge round of acquisitions by multiple companies, there was one company, I forget which one, where their parent company had been acquired and gotten like a $2 million injection, but they were shut down immediately. They didn't even get the standard lip service of, we love what you're doing and we don't want to change anything. And they get laid off 6 months later. It was just an immediate like, oh, okay, we're closing you down.
Right.
And I used to work at Frontier Studios, and so I have a lot of those people on my LinkedIn. And I remember a couple weeks before Christmas, getting notifications on my LinkedIn feed about it was a form letter that they were all sharing about how they were pretty sure they were going to be made redundant the following Monday, because again, bad decisions by executives and the board. And a bunch of people have to lose their jobs. And Frontier is another company that just makes a ton of different games. They've got a ton of properties. And I think some of them did underperform. But again, it just, to me, it's been an anchor around the industry's neck this entire year. And it's just been so frustrating to watch, so disappointing to watch. So that for me is the worst part about the industry this year in general. My biggest disappointment. There goes one of my kids. So we got the negative out of the way. So now it's all positive from here on.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to move on to our next category, which is what was the biggest surprise in games this year for you, CJ? What was the thing that it was a happy surprise, I guess, is what we're looking for.
A happy surprise. Well, you may know from various discussions on this very podcast years ago, let's say around the Wii U and maybe the Vita, where I extolled the virtues of off TV play and how awesome I thought that was. And on the Wii U, I finished a lot of games in off TV play. Like I finished Earthbound, I finished Super Metroid. I finished a lot of longer games and RPGs that I never would have otherwise finished, really. And on the Vita, same kind of deal. Like I finished a lot of games that way, used Sony's remote play system a lot, and I like off TV play. I like the ability to take my games anywhere, right? And cloud gaming has kind of brought that one step further in the sort of technological stack. Mm-hmm. And I bought the Logitech G Cloud last year, or in 2022, and that became like the handheld I used around the house all the time to play Fortnite, to play Sea of Thieves, to play all kinds of different games remotely, and it was great. And I thought, especially because of the reception of that device, the negative reception of that device, maybe that's where it's going to stop. Maybe we will instead see more devices like the Steam Deck, like the ROG Ally. And I was very surprised in a positive way this May when Sony announced that they were doing a handheld based around remote play entirely. That's the entire reason for this thing's existence. The PlayStation Portal is what I'm speaking of. And to me, that was the biggest surprise, in part because Sony hasn't really been the one talking so much about cloud gaming or even doing anything much with their remote play service, even though they were the ones that bought Gaikai and what's that other service I can't remember the name of?
Asobo.
From back in the day. No, that's not it. And at one point they were big into it, and then they kind of fell off. And so I was very surprised to see that here they're releasing a dedicated handheld just to remote play, and that it's a full-size DualSense controller with all of the accoutrement that you get from that controller, and especially the price, $199. I mean, how can you go wrong with that, right? I mean, it's perfect. This is the kind of device that I'm like, this is made for me. This is like, if you ask CJ, what do you want Sony to make next? I'd be like, make a remote play player. And they did this year. So that is my biggest surprise of 2023, the PlayStation Portal, a handheld device made for CJ. But
Yeah,
given to the
almost
rest of the world. as
Made for an audience of one.
made for an audience of one. Me.
I'd love to know. Do we know how that's doing?
It's been sold out at
Really?
PlayStation Direct and Amazon, and like Wario 64 does updates for the Portal being in stock. So I think it's doing really well. I hope it does well enough that they make a case for it, an official.
Yeah,
case
right.
for
I
it.
would like that too, because right
is-
now mine sits nestled away in a drawer because I'm so afraid of it falling off a table or
Yeah.
getting too dusty or
Or maybe like a charging stand or something
That would
too.
be nice
Like it
too.
could really
Mm.
use something like that. But I really hope that we see this sort of remote play, cloud playing tech in a handheld brought even further than the Portal. I think it's a great step, and I want to see more of that.
All right. Phil, how about you?
Well, you know, it's weird. I had something picked out for my biggest surprise this year, but I'm going to have to do a last minute change. And I think my biggest surprise this year is remembering that there's a device called the PlayStation Portal, and not only that, I actually own one.
Wow.
Haven't gotten a lot of use out of that, huh?
It's bonkers. I've not used it as much as
Oh,
CJ has.
I use it all the time.
I know you do.
It's
Of course
great.
you do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right there. It's charging.
Mine's charging right
I
over.
mean, you might even be able to see it. That's it right there.
Okay.
Right there in the corner. It's sitting there. It's charged. It's ready to go. I've just,
Okay.
again, I'm not as enamored with the off-screen play as CJ, but that's fine. That's fine. But my actual biggest surprise is not only did they release a TV series this year based on Twisted Metal, an old PlayStation IP that really hasn't had any attention in a long time. But not only that, is actually
It
good.
didn't suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe good is overselling it. Because I don't know if it's actually good, but boy, is it fun. It's a lot of
That's good
fun.
enough.
Yeah.
Well, and
Which,
it's coming
is-
back for season 2.
which is fine by me. And have either of you watched it yet?
No.
No, I don't have Paramount Plus.
Oh,
Well, it's on Peacock.
I don't have that either.
that's
So
your first mistake.
Oh, okay.
Although I'll
I-
tell you what,
All right. I think it's on Paramount Plus up here.
is it?
Yeah.
Well, my gosh. Then you can watch Twisted Metal and then just dive straight into Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
There you go.
That is on Netflix up here, I believe.
What is going on up in Canada?
No,
Although I did notice.
That's right. Paramount sold the online rights to Star Trek to Netflix everywhere but the US.
That's crazy.
And then they wanted to launch Paramount Plus in other territories and were like, whoops, we don't have Star Trek.
That's like the one thing.
Yeah, no, we have, and I'm just looking at it. Twisted Metal is on Paramount Plus Canada.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, surely
But I
they
do
have
want
like
to see it.
a free week promo or something you can do.
Yeah,
not
there
a
isn't
thing.
that with the PlayStation Plus Premium.
One of the things I'm planning on doing in 2024 is actually starting to rotate my streaming
It's a
services
smart idea.
Good idea.
because I'm paying too much for them in general, and
Yeah.
especially as the prices keep climbing, I need to just start.
Well,
culling
they're
them.
about to
It was
all
nice to
buy
hear we're
each
about to
other
have-
and consolidate. So
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah,
It's nice
what-
to hear we're about to have ads on Prime as well. That's nice.
What did I see? Like Warner
Discovery
Brothers
wants
is,
to buy Paramount or something.
it was
they
that, right? Was
I
it Warner
thought that
Brothers buying
was-
Paramount?
I thought
was
that
it-
stamped down?
the other way around.
I don't
One of
remember.
those.
Yeah.
I mean, Warner Brothers has been buying all
Terrible.
sorts of crap lately.
They pulled this. There have been a lot of stories in the news about Warner Brothers Discovery like pulling things off of their streaming service. Off
yeah.
of Max.
Yes.
And I had not been affected until recently when they pulled Cutthroat Kitchen off of Max
Oh,
entirely. We'd been watching all the seasons of that, and then it was gone.
yeah.
I shed a tear.
I
Speaking of,
did notice.
Sorry.
I did notice that on Netflix now here in the US, like all the DC, the Warner Brother DC
Oh.
superhero movies, those are all on Netflix now suddenly.
Yeah, they're pulling them off of Max. Yeah.
Wait, they're pulling them off of Max?
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, they do that stuff. They pull things off of Max to give it to Netflix.
Right.
Yeah,
Because I popped
I hate-
on
I hate
Netflix
I hate that stuff.
yesterday to check out a new animated new stop motion animated series on Netflix
Yeah,
called Pokemon Concierge,
I've heard of it. Yeah,
which is, oh my
It's great.
gosh, charming as heck. Holy cow.
Hmm.
But then I noticed like all the DC stuff was there, and it's just like, what's going on?
speaking of streaming stuff, now that we're into this conversation,
Yeah.
we keep getting sidetracked.
We
My
really do.
daughter's been watching through Boy Meets World. Which I've never
on
seen.
Disney Plus.
At
I've never seen it.
90s. Is
Yeah,
it a 90s show?
the one with Fred Savage's little brother.
Right.
Why did people like that show?
I never saw it.
It's awful, and I don't mean quality wise. I mean the characters are terrible.
Really.
Like the season she's on like season 7 now, which I think the show overstayed its welcome anyway. But there was a whole season she was watching where the two main characters, their girlfriends didn't want to be with them anymore. So the whole premise of the season was that they just didn't know they wanted to be with them anymore. So it was always like, you don't know you love me. You don't know you love me. And that was like the whole theme of it. I think this is awful. This is the worst.
Huh.
Anyway,
That's weird because I usually expect like, tween sitcoms to be really good.
hey,
Yes.
come on. Saved by the Bell was great.
I never saw Saved by the Bell either. I was
I never
Jesus.
did either.
You know what?
No.
The characters
Cool.
weren't not as even Screech was not as off-putting as the characters in this show.
really.
Anyway, let's keep going.
Yeah.
We got
What's your
we
big
got-
surprise?
My biggest surprise. So for me, I actually picked a game, and I wasn't sure which one to pick because I felt like there were a few times this year
Mm.
where there was a game that I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, this is coming out real soon, and Nintendo, I feel, was sort of leading the pack on that. But there were always rumors. Like I think Metroid dropped kind of by surprise. Not
I
dropped,
dare say Bethesda was leading the pack on that this year, but
just hang on one sec.
oh,
Chill your jets there.
too late.
And then Mario RPG, kind of same thing. But
Uh-huh.
I have to give it to Bethesda
There it is.
Oh,
because not only did we get the game the second they told us about the game,
Yeah.
but it was an entirely new property.
Right.
There were no rumors about it that I knew of.
Right.
And it ended up being really good. So
I've heard
good. I
that.
bet you we're going to be talking about it a little bit more later in the show.
I mean,
But yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is fantastic. That was my sort of.
I'm not saying there's a reason why I didn't have that be my biggest surprise.
No, we all know why. But we read Giant Bomb. We know.
Exactly.
we know.
But no, that I mean, when you said that, it was like, oh well, I'm going to take care of it in this category anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's because Metroid, we knew what we were getting. We just didn't know when we were getting it. Super Mario RPG, there was a rumor, right? But we just
Right.
didn't know when it was coming out. But Hi-Fi Rush, man, that was from 0 to 60
Well,
in like 2 seconds.
the rumor I thought with Mario RPG was about Thousand Year Door, not the original.
I
Oh,
don't think it was clear.
Hmm.
But either way,
So either way, we got
you hear
both.
CJ, you hear CJ trying to take this away from Hi-Fi Rush. You notice that,
Yep.
Phil? I
Yep.
hope you're putting that down. I hope
no,
you're.
I know.
I am not trying to take it away from Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is
see,
a
now he's
quality
backpedaling.
video game.
Currently uninstalling humanity.
Damn it! You'd have to use your PlayStation Portal to do that from where you're sitting.
Oh my gosh.
Good thing it's charged. Do you remember how to turn it on?
It's one of the buttons, I bet.
There aren't that many buttons on
No.
it. You'll figure it out.
I'll feel around the
You're
edge of
smart
it until something clicks.
Damn it!
All right, we got one more category to get through here before we get into our top 5.
Okay.
So
Yes,
we all play older games.
we do.
I know for me
Sometimes.
personally, I play more older games in a year than I do play games that come out that year.
Well,
least that's
for your
what it was this
streaming
year.
and everything.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't always get to all the new games every year. So there's always something left over, especially early in the year. I find we're playing through something that might have been come out the previous year. So this
Yeah.
next category is favorite game you played this year that wasn't released
Oh,
in 2023. And CJ, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take this category and I'm gonna bend it just a little bit.
Here we go.
Uh-oh.
CJ's got a list of games that came out in 2023.
yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Favorite game played this year that wasn't originally from 2023, and I'm gonna say Super Mario RPG. for
There you
this.
go. Totally fair.
Yeah, back in the day when Mario RPG came out, I don't know if I would say I wasn't that much into RPGs, but I wasn't that much into RPGs. I enjoyed Final Fantasy VI, and
Damn right you did.
that was about it.
Mm.
And I really didn't have any interest in Mario RPG, so I never played it. And I felt like all of my friends and coworkers were judging me when I said I had never played Mario
They were.
RPG. My co-hosts, for instance,
Mhm.
judging me.
I mean,
Never played it.
for the record,
So-
we are
Always.
constantly judging you.
I figured.
Yeah.
So when Nintendo announced a remake was coming out, I hopped on that bandwagon and I hopped on it big time.
Yeah, you
Good.
did.
And used a voucher to pre-order Mario
It's
RPG.
pronounced Boucher.
Voucher to pre-order Super
you're being
Mario
silly.
RPG.
Yeah.
And I've been enjoying the heck out of it. I've been playing it. Unfortunately, I ran into that bug, and you may have heard of this. There was a bug with the Para Koopa in Monstro Town, where they say that they're going to meet you in a place and then they don't show up there.
Oh.
So I
Y'all
ran into that
split
bug.
up.
They never showed in there, but a very recent patch fixed that problem, and then I was able to progress finally
Wow.
past that point. So very happy there.
I think
And
I had heard of that, but I didn't run into it.
I did, and I only have 2 more stars to get. I'm just about to get the 6th star, and then the 7th star is in sight.
Is there something that triggers that glitch?
I don't know what triggered it, but I ran into it where they
Okay.
said they would be waiting, and I went there, and they weren't there.
I mean, you have to be used to that by now, though, right?
Not in games, Phil.
Oh,
Gosh.
Golly.
But anyway, yeah, everything about the battle system is fun, and being able to swap characters and have Bowser on your team, and the timing attacks, and the graphic style of it, and the lighthearted story, and the different areas, the biomes that you go through are fun. The mini games are fun. Like the game just kind of screams
Fun.
fun.
fun lovers rejoice.
And I don't know why I never played. I'm probably because it came out the same
Probably
year
because
as
it came out so late.
the N64, and I was
Yeah.
already playing
Yeah,
PlayStation games, not
absolutely.
really playing Super Nintendo games at that point.
Hmm.
But man, I have really been enjoying it, and the music's fantastic. Love it. And yeah, I'm just enjoying the heck out of it. And that is my favorite game that I played this year that wasn't originally from 2023.
It was a good pick.
Yeah.
Phil, how about you?
Well, you know what? I I mean, I guess I'm cheating in the same way or in a similar way as CJ by talking about an old game that was re-released for modern systems. But I played an awful lot of Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana this year, which was originally, that game is originally from 2016. And I first played it when it was released on the PS4 in 2017, but I only played a little bit of it. I didn't get terribly far in it back in the day because I got sidetracked by other games, as I am wont to do, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But earlier this year, I was, they released it for PS5 late last year. It was November last year they re-released it on PS5. And of course I picked it up because it's an Ys game. And I will double or triple dip on Ys games because of the way I am. But yeah, earlier this year, I found myself wanting something to play. And was like, oh, maybe it's time to restart Ys 8. So I popped in the PS5 version. Played it a lot. Didn't finish it yet because I got sidetracked by some other game, as I am wont to do.
The tradition continues.
I know.
Yep.
So I do need to get back into it and finish it, which I fully intend to at some point because I'm really having a blast with it. Boy, do I love Ys games.
Only finished the first two.
And this will be something we can talk about next week. My Analog Duo showed up, so I've been playing some of the old Ys games. I love them so much.
But
that's
what I
Ys
use
1 and 2.
kids.
Yeah. YS. Wise. If you don't know how games are pronounced,
that's what I called it when I was a kid.
Ys.
I played through Ys 1 and 2 in 2022, and I was so glad I finally did.
Yeah,
they're just very, very nice little games.
They're fun little games.
They're little,
they are.
But that's
although
okay. That's why they bundled them in the one disc.
Ys 8 is significantly more robust than Ys Book 1 and 2. I mean, when you pop in Ys 1 and 2 for the turbo, they tell you how to pronounce the game. You have the narration right at the start of the game. Ys.
Yeah, but see, when you see
Utopia.
it, when you only read about it in magazines and you only see that intro but can't hear it at Radio Shack,
Yep.
It's wise.
Completely.
That was the only reason to go to Radio Shack. That and seeing Wing Commander playing on a PC.
Oh yeah,
man, I used to love going to Radio Shack just to watch them running PC demos.
But yeah, that's what I played. Some Ys 8. How about you, Greg?
Well, for me, and I've talked about this. I actually talked about this on Giant Bomb. I wouldn't say that it was necessarily my favorite game that I played that wasn't released in 2023, but it's the game I'm happiest that I played through, which is Policenauts. I'm really happy I finally played through Policenauts. Because that obviously the great English translation patch, which has been around for years now, allowed me to do so. And as I said on this show previously, when I played through it, it's not as good as Snatcher. It's sort of a spiritual successor to Snatcher, is how it's always been sort of referred to. It's basically Lethal Weapon in space, which is fine with me. I'm a big Lethal Weapon fan. But it's not as good as Snatcher.
Nah.
But the reason I'm so happy I played it is because being a big Snatcher fan, being a big Metal Gear Solid fan, it was really, really great to experience the missing piece of the catalog, the Kojima catalog, that I just hadn't played. And it really bridged the gap. His storytelling style was really starting to crystallize in Policenauts, for better or worse, depending on how you like Kojima games. But like when you play Snatcher and you play Metal Gear Solid back to back, you can tell it's by the same visionary. right? Like you can tell it's the same person who's sort of leading the writing and all that sort of thing. But when you sort of slot Police Knots in between them, then it's just like, oh yeah, okay. Like there's a direct line now from elements in Snatcher, the storytelling elements in Snatcher, through Police Knots to Metal Gear. You can just see his storytelling style evolving, and that's the reason I loved it. It's really silly in parts. It's really cringeworthy in parts, especially because you don't have the corporate shackles that Kojima's games had when they came to North America back in the 90s. Things that just wouldn't be acceptable here and were obviously changed for those reasons. You don't deal with any of that in Police Nuts. And this is not me saying we shouldn't censor games. That's not at all what I'm saying. But there are moments where you're like, okay, that's something that happened. But still, it's Kojima through and through. And I'm really glad that I played it this year. And I recommend playing it. It's not very long, especially if you're, again, a Metal Gear fan or a Death Stranding fan or a Snatcher fan or whatever. A Kojima fan, if you will.
Nice.
All right. That's all out of the way. Now, almost an hour into the show.
Oh, dear.
It's going to be a long one. It's time to start our top five games, personal top 5 favorite games of 2023. We need announcer Phil to kick us off with our number 5.
Oh, okay. I can handle that. Oh no, wait, hold on.
CJ, are you our
follow-up?
Spanish announcer? You're the Spanish announcer this year?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
I think we have another special guest coming in
Oh no.
to read off the announcements.
Oh, even better.
Happy New Year, jerks. How's it going?
Did you get everything you
Great.
wanted for Christmas?
Oh, don't even start with Christmas and me. Oh, boy. You know how I feel about that day.
You really made our Christmas Carol a blasphemous good time.
Well, I like to make everything a blasphemous good time. Let me tell you. I know this dude, his birthday is on Christmas, and it just ruins the holiday for me.
Yeah, I imagine.
Just the worst.
I hate
You know,
that.
I heard you
like that.
I heard you guys making fun of Jeff Keighley a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you, you want to talk about king of the Nepo babies. That birthday boy, just
You're gonna get us in trouble.
the worst.
Wow.
Yeah, and he ain't shy about throwing the name around either. Ugh. You see him coming down the street and everyone's just like, ugh, Christ the Lord. No thanks. Anyway,
Hey, listen. We
Yeah.
need you to kick off our top 5 lists by announcing number 5 for us.
Oh, absolutely. I am
Do it. Do it.
delighted to do it for you. Number 666, the sign of the beast. No, I'm just kidding. Number 5.
Numero 5.
Oh,
Very
that's
nice.
muy bien.
Very well done.
Thank you, Satan.
Thank you, Satan.
Nice.
CJ,
Yeah.
what was your number 5 game of 2023?
Oh, why don't you look up on Giant Bomb what it is? No,
I already know. I just want to see if you know.
Yeah.
I know what I wrote. I wrote that my number 5 video game of 2023 is from Bethesda.
Mhm.
And it's a game that took a long time to make, and it's Starfield.
This was my runner-up for biggest disappointment.
It's Starfield. Yeah, it's not my.
Boy, it would have
biggest
been mine if I
have it on the
remembered it
list.
came out this year.
You. It is a game that I I wasn't sure about when they showed off all that stuff, and then Xbox did their pseudo E3 press conference and did a special Starfield Direct kind of thing and talked about it for 20 minutes, and it's like, well, it looks kind of cool. I'll give it a shot. It's going to be on Game Pass, so I don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
Why not try it out? And it ended up that I really enjoyed it. so much so that I finished the game and then started playing the New Game Plus
Wow.
portion of it.
How long
Yeah.
did it take to finish it?
I think I have something like 60 so hours, and that's
Oh, wow.
including the bit of New Game Plus that I
Not as
played.
long as I expected, to be honest.
Yeah. And part of the reason why I like it so much is that it does have time travel elements to it, especially at the end of the game. And I guess I could spoil this a little bit. Spoilers for Starfield ahead.
You fly a DeLorean.
But basically, at the end of the game, you meet yourself.
What?
Yeah, yourself has been the enemy, quote unquote,
What?
Oh my goodness.
of the
I
game.
mean, I don't care. I'm never going to play this. So keep
And
going.
you have a choice whether like you go in one direction or the other, like whether you take the good route or bad route. And
But haven't you already
you have
taken
this-
the bad route?
you have this conversation with yourself because you've already done it before.
Right.
And so you're talking to yourself and you're deciding which one are you going to do this time. And I thought it was a really interesting way of doing it. And then of course the New Game Plus is you going back in time and becoming the enemy that you
That's pretty
were
cool.
originally
Hmm.
up against the first time. So New Game Plus doesn't play out exactly the same. You
I like
can
that.
play it out exactly the same if you want, or you can entirely skip that narrative and go do other things if you want, using an entirely new kind of ship that they give you. And you can basically like finish the game over and over and over and over again, and it gives you different almost kind of like Rogue Legacy. It gives you different sort of
Don't-
modifiers to the
Don't
game.
try and sell this game to me.
That's great.
Things that
I
either
love what you did there.
did or didn't happen in your timeline, and some people are dead, and so you have to tiptoe around that, or like whoever you were romancing is dead and you have to tiptoe around that. Like it's a really interesting game, and I really liked the way that they put all that together. I thought it was meaningful. I thought it was fun. Yes, as a video game, it kind of falls flat in a lot of ways, like very empty planets to explore. And God, to me, like it's like other Fallout games where the NPCs are just very wooden feeling. They just don't react well. And if you kind of approach it at a certain point, I started approaching it like a radio play. Like I was listening to a radio play, because some of the responses and dialogue is just so unnatural that it's just like it felt like a radio play from the 1940s and 50s or something like that. So I kind of took it on like that and had a lot more fun with it. But yeah, so I put 60 plus hours into it. I felt like I should mention it at the outer limits of my top 5, and I did enjoy it. There are bits that as a video game it falls down, like no maps in towns. Like what's with that? No way to like navigate those. Like you have to do it through the in-game HUD. It was very odd, but I enjoyed it enough. And I didn't do any of the sort of base building stuff or much of the shipbuilding stuff. It was good that that's there, but I was glad that I could just do the main story bits. And my first game, I just did the main story and then did the whole piracy arc in the second playthrough of the New Game Plus, and that was super fun. A lot of fun story bits in that you would miss if you didn't do it the first time around. Anyway,
Well, hey, I mean, that's
I liked
the game's shortcomings. Obviously, it resonated enough with you that didn't really matter. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
I don't know that I would have paid $60-$70 for it, but
You didn't have to.
I didn't have to, because I'm a Game Pass. I just mixed up PS Plus and Game Pass in there. See, Game Pass Ultimate subscriber. So
Well, la di da.
mhm.
Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Mhm.
All right, Phil. What about you? What's your number 5?
Well, before I go into my number 5 game, what is I'm looking at this thing on your table right behind you, Greg. What is that thing standing on your table just over your left shoulder there?
That is the back of a nutcracker,
Okay, that's kind of what I figured it was.
shaped like a goalie.
Okay,
Aha.
Because
you know, the reason I ask, and perhaps looking at it through your monitor there, it looks kind of like an oddly proportioned Optimus Prime. You see, he's got
it
the
could.
he got the
Yeah.
what looks like a red chest.
Mm-hmm.
You got kind of a white, like kind of groin area. You got kind of what looks like blue legs.
Whitest
So-
of groins. Yeah.
Yeah. So
No, it's a nutcracker.
it is a nut. It's a hockey themed nutcracker.
Yes.
Okay, that is
My son is a
wonderful.
goalie. So
Yes.
The whitest of groins, possible show title.
you'll probably forget.
I'm going to write it down so I don't forget.
My number 5 game this year is you know what? I have to give it up for the good folks at Digital Eclipse again. I'm giving it to the making of Karateka
Mm-hmm.
or Karateka.
Came very close to being on my top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They continue to do incredible work with their, what are they calling it? The Gold Series?
Gold Master Series.
Gold Master Series, yes. And I mean, I guess this is the first game technically in that series.
Yes.
They've certainly been
Although
doing,
Atari 50 was clearly the
right.
Prototype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and we of course we have the Jeff Minter one coming in this upcoming year. But
Yes.
but yeah, the making of Karateka just again setting the standard, setting the Gold Master standard for just the idea of this interactive playable documentary,
Mhm.
really doing that deep dive into the history of the creation of this game and just everything leading up to it. I loved having the zillion different prototypes of all the games, like not even just of Karateka, but all the games that Jordan worked on beforehand leading up to it.
Yeah.
All the documentation that fortunately had been saved and they were able to get scanned and put into the game. It was just presented in such a wonderful way.
Like the
And-
correspondence between him and Broderbund.
Oh,
Amazing. Just great.
where Broderbund is like telling them like, oh, these parts were cool in the game, but this stuff we didn't really like. Can you tweak that? And then you have his subsequent build of the game that has those changes implemented.
love
And
that.
Yeah.
it was just incredible. And we talked about this when that game was originally released earlier, I guess technically last year, as this episode is released.
Right.
But yeah, I played Karateka back on my Commodore 64 back in the day, but it was never one of my favorite games.
No.
Yeah.
Same here. I remember playing it on one of those 101 cartridges or 31 cartridges on the Famicom.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it before that until I played that
Okay.
Famicom version and being super impressed by it and not knowing any better, thinking, wow, this is a lot like Prince of Persia. But yeah, not something I would seriously play.
Yeah. But again, it's less about my actual enjoyment of the game as a whole and more about just all of the circumstances surrounding it and the fact that they are able to do this sort
Right.
of deep dive documentary about it is just wonderful. And it did the job of making me more appreciative of that game and what it represents and what it what led up to it and then what it led to in the future as well. So yeah, I mean, I cannot wait to see what they do with the Jeff Minter thing and
Mhm.
beyond. So really looking forward to all the stuff that that entire team is doing. And again, we are friends with some of those people working on that, and it's wonderful to see these people who we like personally and whose work we've enjoyed over the years just doing something that's so passionate and such a labor of love, and having it turn out so wonderfully. So
agreed.
Had to make the list. What about you, Greg?
My number 5 is actually, we've already talked about this a little bit, is Super Mario RPG.
Yeah.
Yes, I realized that it's well, you know what? This was such a top to bottom remake that I'd say it's not really something that was released previously, technically, kind of, whatever. I did play this game back when it came out in 95, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
I think 96. It was late.
Right. And I didn't have sort of massive love for it. I liked it, but I was more of a, I'm going to play anything with Mario in it. I'm going to play anything by Squaresoft because I was a big RPG fan at that point anyway. And Final Fantasy was the series that got me into role-playing games in the first place. So, but it kind of, obviously, it felt like a kiddie game, for lack of a better term, because it was meant to be. It was meant to be an entry point to the RPG genre, using characters that non-RPG fans love, and with a lot of systems built around not only a little bit of Twitch gameplay, but pretty simple, straightforward games and mini games. But with Mario RPG, the remake on Switch, I bought it. I was excited for it because I wanted to play it again. But again, I don't have a ton of nostalgia for it. But man, I turned it on just to try it, as I do with almost anything that I buy, even if I don't end up playing through it right away. Like, I want to play it for a few minutes at least and just get a feel for it and, see how it looks, and just got hooked on it immediately. I didn't want to stop playing. I felt compelled to pick it up. Every time I grabbed my Switch, I was like, well, I want to play Mario RPG. And of course, having settings in there that got rid of any of the grinding that was involved, although I don't remember there was much grinding involved in the original game anyway. But having those settings in there, streamlined the game for someone like me who just kind of wanted to experience it again. And because I didn't have a ton of nostalgia for that game, and I haven't played it a million times, I didn't remember anything about the story really, because it's been 30 years. So I just loved it. It looks great. It plays great. You can tailor it to the level of difficulty you want. Mario and the other characters in the game are super cute looking. The whole thing looks like a. It's funny. It's still, I'd say, it looks kind of like CGI, which was sort of one of the original game's big selling points, but not in that crappy, rarefied kind of CGI way that we were all dealing with. That's not. I know why things like that were done back then, because we were dealing with much smaller resolutions. We were dealing with CRTs. So, you had to have things exaggerated so they would read on the screen, especially when the characters were going to be so small, and you were crushing them down to sprites too. So you lose a lot of the fidelity there. So it was kind of nice to see it in sort of glorious 3D in much higher definition. So it's like, this was kind of what was intended and kind of what we imagined it to look like, or, thinking back to it, how we think of it looking, even though it was nowhere close to what it looked like back in 95 or 96. And yeah, just really compelling. I wanted to keep playing constantly. Some of the things CJ said too, being able to swap your party characters out mid battle and not really being penalized for it in any way. Just a great system. I can see, again, looking back on it, something that what probably turned my nose up at when I was, 19 when the game came out. But now super appreciate making something that accessible to people, making role-playing games, especially nowadays where role-playing games a lot of times are actually way more complicated than even the hardcore ones were back then, unless you were playing them on a PC. Having something that's just this easy to get into is a wonderful entry point for role-playing games. So I just, absolutely adored it.
Excellent.
Nice.
We should call Satan back, because now we're going to move on to number 4. Hey, Satan.
How's it going? Those were some tasty number 5s. But are you ready? Is the world ready for number 4?
Numero cuatro.
I love CJ's bedroom voice.
Es
Yeah,
muy
lucky lady.
caliente.
CJ, what's your number 4?
Well, what's my number 4? Well, my number 4 is Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
I get it.
And what? You get it?
Yeah, I
Wonderful
got it. I got the joke.
You got it? You got the joke?
Yeah.
This game brings back all the memories of Super Mario Brothers past. All the games that I loved growing up. Kind of get to experience that again, but with a shiny new coat of paint with animation that is lovely to look at and behold, and level design that just keeps you guessing in all the fun ways, and none of the bad ways. I guess except maybe the final stage, like Phil was talking about. So I'm not at the final stage. I don't want it to end though, so I'm playing it very slowly. And some may say too slowly, but I say nay. I'm playing it at just the pace I wanted to play it at.
And their loins.
But yeah, such a great game from Nintendo, and one that I'm happy that we got, considering that they seem to be much more about 3D Mario than 2D Mario these days. And I like that you can follow up a Super Mario Odyssey type game with a much more narrowly focused Mario game in 2D. And I kind of hope they take that approach with Zelda as well. Like, they have these big sweeping Zelda games, but as a Zelda fan, now that Tears of the Kingdom's out and done with, and Aonuma says they're not planning a sequel to it, like, I kind of want something different in that series too. Like, I want them to take this sort of same tact with that series and do like an old school Zelda, like do a smaller Zelda, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I'm so glad that Nintendo has done this with Mario. The online play is interesting, and I have been playing it online.
Is that a question?
I have been playing it online where, you know, there are other people in your lobby and they leave standees that you can then respawn at. And I get into leaving standees as well, just for other people. And you wait at the exit for other people to get there, and so you can finish together. And it's
always best when you finish together.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I haven't experienced
it. Only in Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
Of course. And it's just a joy of a game. And I like to see games made with this same kind of joy. Like, I know there's so many dark and gritty games, but like, to me, video games is about joy. It's about delight. It's about mechanics that surprise you. And that's what Mario Wonder is in a nutshell. So that's my number 4.
Beautiful.
Very nice. Philip, how about you?
My number 4 game this year was Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Nice.
Which I really, really enjoyed. I am a sucker for a good Star Wars game. And you know, this one is I guess I should amend that a bit. I'm a sucker for a good Star Wars story-based single player adventure, because I don't really get into like the Battlefront type games or anything like that.
Well, I feel like a lot of people forgot about this game.
I do as well. And and again, the banger of a year.
Yeah,
you know,
really
there's a zillion incredible games that came out this year, but you know, and it makes sense that a lot of people would kind of overlook this one, because you know, it's not a perfect game. It has its flaws, but It's got enough of that good Star Wars enjoyment to get a sucker like me hooked on it. And yeah, I just had a ton of fun jetting around the galaxy, being a Jedi, using the Force, meeting weird aliens, and yeah. And there's not much more to say about it than that. It just, let me spend a couple dozen hours immersed in the world of Star Wars and have a fun little story to go along with it, which, for Star Wars is a bit of a rarity these days. Certainly, the TV shows aren't really giving us much in terms of compelling narrative, unless we're talking Andor. But
Which I still haven't watched.
You have not watched Andor yet.
No.
Man,
That's a good show.
you should watch Andor.
Mostly because of fatigue.
Man,
Same reason I haven't seen a lot of the Marvel stuff lately.
I mean,
Kind of done with it for now.
it's shockingly good. It's I think we've talked about this when it first came out, but it's one of those things where you will watch it and it does take about 3 episodes for it to kind of click.
Mm-hmm.
Once it gets to that first arc, when you kind of realize like, okay, this is what this show's about. This is kind of how this show is paced. This is how they're telling their story. Once you get into like that 3rd episode and everything clicks, and then the rest of the show just ramps up from there, you get angry because you realize that all Star Wars could be this, but it isn't.
Yeah.
It makes most of the other stuff seem worse by comparison, but yeah, you should absolutely sit down and watch Andor. And then play some Jedi Survivor, which isn't as good as Andor, but I still had a really good time with it.
I would like to play it. Definitely need to add that to my backlog.
Throw it on the easy difficulty, throw it on story mode or whatever they call it, and go. I actually didn't have it on the story mode. I had it on whatever was like right above story mode, basically up until the end of the game, and I hit a particularly obnoxious boss battle, and I was just like, nah, I'm not wasting my time with that. So I bumped it down to baby mode and finished it off. But yeah, it's definitely worth a play if you are a Star Wars nerd. So
Nice.
There you go. What about you, Greg?
My number 4, I don't normally do this because I like to have finished the games.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I feel like if it's something that you're currently playing, recency bias can definitely creep in. I mean, it does anyway.
Right.
Definitely.
But I just have to because I'm really enjoying this a lot. And that is Alan Wake 2.
Okay.
All right.
Was really, anticipating this game quite a bit. The back end of the year was chock full of stuff to play. Plus, I didn't play anything else for like 3 months while I was playing Zelda. So a bit of a backlog built up. When I finally put in Alan Wake, the game has clicked for me. The Mind Palace thing I was sort of complaining about a little bit in a recent episode. I get why it's there now, and there's more to do in there, but there's something about you're switching back and forth between playing as Saga and playing as Alan Wake, and although they play similarly, they feel very different. When you're in Alan Wake, you're kind of in like a dream world when you're playing as Alan Wake, and so it's just the creepiness factor is turned up to 11 during his sections. And I love it. I love the things they're doing with it. I love how the world is sort of changing around him based on some of his actions. It's creepy as hell. But then when you get to the Saga bits, because it's more based in reality. Well, as far as I know, so far it's based in reality. There are long stretches of the game where you're kind of walking around and just talking to people, and nothing's really happening. And there was one section that I played in particular that I just absolutely adore, where you're in this tiny little town called Watery, I believe. It's a bit on the nose. And it's flooded. And you have to get to this theme park, this carnival, normally down this road, well, down this river, but the river's flooded, so the road is washed out, and it's on the other side of the river, of course. So you need to take this path up through these woods, and you can see it in the distance. You can hear it. You can like hear children cheering, and hear, you can see like there's a like a tilt-a-whirl that's all lit up that you can see. There's a Ferris wheel that's all lit up, but it's a little bit foggy. It's always there in the distance, but as you're getting further into the forest, it's like the darkness is kind of creeping in around you, and it's this great juxtaposition where you finally end up almost on a cliff overlooking this theme park that you can see in the distance, but you're surrounded by Taken, like you're being hunted by sort of the evil characters. And the audio in the game, which I believe the first Alan Wake was really good at this too, they're so good at adjusting the environment through animation and through audio that just makes the game creepy as anything. And I'm just walking up this path, and I didn't even, it kind of got me where it was like, okay, I'm just going to walk up the path. I'm sure something will probably happen, but it almost, without realizing it had happened, it's like, oh my God, I'm like dead in the middle of like a horror section of this game, and I didn't expect it. And I can see sort of safety right there, and I can't get to it. And so much of the game is like that. And I'm just, and also the integration of the Foolish and Video stuff as well. I really love what Remedy does with stuff like this. I feel like this is, having never played Control, I feel like this is kind of their masterpiece. At least that's how it's feeling so far as the multimedia approach that they like to take to things. So yeah, man, I'm just really digging it, and I highly recommend anybody who's even remotely interested in horror games check it out. I know Patrick Klepek, friend of the show, he finished it recently, and he regards it very highly, and he's a big horror fan too. So that definitely holds a lot of water for me. So yeah, so that was my number 4.
Awesome.
Hey, Satan,
Yes.
can you lead us into number 3, please?
Oh, absolutely, Greg. For you, anything at any time. Just
There's a best hunks conversation with Jeff Grubb I probably want to get you into.
I'm at number 1, I assume.
Well, you'll have to join to find out.
You'll have to join to find out, buddy. Number 3.
Numero tres.
Very good.
For a minute there, I thought CJ was going to forget what 3 was in Spanish. Mostly because I forgot what 3 was for just an instant there. CJ,
Yeah.
What is your number 3 game of 2020?
Well, Greg, my number 3 game is Pikmin 4.
Hey.
Yeah, Pikmin 4. Pikmin is a series that I always wanted to like.
I thought you always did like it.
Well, here's the thing. Pikmin
Uh-oh.
1 and 2 came out. I always wanted to like those games, and I did like them, but I never finished any of those games. I never finished the first 2. And then Pikmin 3 came out on the Wii U. And as I was mentioning earlier, I played a lot of games with off TV play, and I think I may have finished Pikmin 3 as off TV play. But I loved that game. I thought it was brilliant. And in part, it's because in 3, they sort of took away, or they minimized the time limit. The Pikmin games have like a day-night cycle, and you need to finish up before before the sun goes down. And you also need to finish Pikmin 1 and 2 in a certain number of days, or you get a game over. And Pikmin 3 kind of did that, but they changed it to whereas if you had enough rations, which is just you have the Pikmin collect fruit or vegetables or something. As long as you have rations, you can continue. You don't have to finish it in a set number of days. So that pressure was kind of alleviated there. And Pikmin 4 alleviated that even more by just taking away the time limit altogether. You don't have a time limit. You have day-night cycles, but you can, take your time. You don't have to hurry anything up, and you can really explore all of the environments that they give you, and they really encourage you to do so, to the point where they like give you little perks to buy that make everything so much easier to explore. You can and also navigate with different groups of Pikmin. So you can split up into teams and get things done really quickly if you want, with certain power-ups. Ochi, your little canine companion is controllable as well. And as you progress in the game, you get more power-ups for him. You can train him to do new things and like collect Pikmin that are just idle in the environment, which is very, very nice. And just the user experience of Pikmin 4 is better than any Pikmin before it. So much so that I highly suggest, if you've never played a Pikmin game, just haven't been interested because you feel like there's too much pressure involved in time or whatnot, to try the demo of Pikmin 4 because it's just so much fun. And the save transfers over to the full game as well. And they introduced this concept called Dandori, which I think they even talked about in the previous Pikmin games, but they didn't use that term in the English translations before. But it's basically this idea of figuring out the order in which to do things and delegating teams of Pikmin to do things and to get everything done swiftly and most efficiently. And they have battles where you are up against the computer directly in a smaller sort of arena where you have to always be splitting your Pikmin up into teams and going for different things and scoring more points than the computer. And to me, that was a huge amount of fun. Plus, they have sort of these dungeon areas where the time, both in the Dandori battles and the dungeon areas, the time slows down and basically almost stops. So you can go to those and not feel like you have to rush through them because you're running out of time. Like the day-night cycle doesn't really run while you're in there. So you can really get more out of the puzzle elements and the exploration elements in these sort of dungeon levels that have bosses, and they mix up the mechanics quite a lot and introduce environmental puzzles, and those are super fun. And the game looks beautiful too on the Switch, especially the Switch OLED. It looks so nice and vibrant, and I just absolutely adore this game. And they've made it so approachable, and they've taken away all the obstacles. You can basically and with the perks that you can unlock, you can make this game as easy or as difficult as you want. And I love that about sort of new age Nintendo does this kind of thing a lot. And I dig that. And Pikmin 4 is just a fantastic game, and it's got a long campaign and a post game, and it is, it's just such a great game. And I wish more people would be into it and not be scared to try it, because it seems like it's a strategy game or like a real-time strategy game. I hate real-time strategy games, and I love Pikmin 4. It's more about exploration and just kind of having fun in this Honey, I Shrunk the Kids kind of backyard world. And I love it.
I wonder if my oldest would really enjoy that game. I should get her to try the demo.
It's great. It's so good.
Cool. Yeah. Phil, what about you? Number 3.
My number 3 game is Spider-Man 2.
Nice.
Whip, whip.
Rope.
We were talking about this game pretty recently. So I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself, but yeah, I loved the original Marvel's Spider-Man from Insomniac. I loved the Miles Morales game even more. And I loved this game too. Maybe not as much as the Miles Morales game, but I loved it all the same. I will admit it's a little lower on my list this year than I anticipated. Mainly
Yeah, I'm
because
surprised
of,
to hear it this low, but I know why.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Right.
I felt the ending kind of dragged. I by the time spoilers for Spider-Man, but we've already spoiled it on the show. But by the time the big Venom reveal came around and the whole city got venomized and everything, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm kind of done with it now. But that is not to, disparage the game that much. It's still my third favorite game of the year, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling we'll be talking about this game a little more.
Really?
From some of the other people as we go. I mean, from what I've read on Giant Bomb, I have a feeling that might be the case.
Could be.
I can't say for certain. But yeah, so we can wait and chat about it a bit more then. But yes, Spider-Man 2 is fantastic and spectacular even. But
Amazing.
yeah, I'd go. Yeah, I'd say that. Uncanny. Some might
That's the
say
X-Men.
incredible. Some might say fantastic. I don't know. So Spider-Man. What about you, Greg? What's your number 3?
My number 3 is actually another remake,
Oh,
and that is Dead Space.
Oh, wow.
Again, kind of now, I was a big fan of Dead Space. In fact, I'm sure if we go back and check our top 5 lists, the first one probably made it on there somewhere.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Dead Space 2 probably a little bit more. I'm a bigger fan of Dead Space 2, but the first one, I was a huge fan, but still only ever played it once, just because there's so much else to play. And was really happy to have this remake come out this year. And another one of those situations where I'm just going to play this for a few minutes, just to try it, and then just couldn't put it down. It holds up so well. It's been long enough. This is, I think, my favorite thing about remakes is when it's been a long enough time that even if I remember sort of the major story beats, it still feels fresh enough because it's been long enough that the minutia has been forgotten, right? And that's definitely what this game did for me. Again, kind of what I went into with Alan Wake 2 as well. The ability that they show to set the atmosphere just perfectly, set the mood just perfectly, where you're in this the belly of this gigantic ship where shit has clearly gone down. And even when you've got monster closets and things like that happening, I always felt a sense of dread. I always felt the tension rising at all times, and was never ready for something to jump out at me. And it worked on so many levels. The story still works on so many levels. And man, there are just certain set pieces in that game where, like, when you go out and do a bit of a spacewalk to fire that gigantic cannon, it's so well done. Like the void of space is so crushing in that moment. I love it. Or when you're in sections of the ship that have blown out and you kind of see space, or when you get up onto the bridge and the bridge is just this super cool high tech massive area where you walk in, and it's also like a video game trope where you walk in, it's like, oh, there's going to be a big fight here, obviously, because it's a big, it's just a big arena.
Right.
But it's built in such a way that it still looks so neat, so cool when you get into it. And then going down to the planet too, like there's just so much to love about that game. It really holds up well. It doesn't feel old, which I think was my main takeaway from it. Playing through it again this year was like this. They could, if this hadn't existed and they released it in this form in 2023, it would have felt fresh and new, and like it fit still, which I think goes a long way to saying, that's a triumph of design, that it doesn't feel 10 years old or however old it is now. So yeah, I love me some Dead Space.
Nice.
Yeah, that's another one we've got some fairly different games here so far.
We
from
do.
one
You,
another.
you, you were talking about that earlier. I
Yeah.
forget exactly where, about how a
Yeah.
lot of times we tend to have fairly similar lists.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
kind of a consensus of which game we
Well,
all
what year
kind of,
was it
the game.
when what year was it recently where like top 3 or 4 was almost exactly the
Right.
same?
yeah.
Well, I mean, it was all Guardians for us last year, right? And I think
Right.
Miles Morales we were all on board that year.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Walking Dead we were all on board one year.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we're
But I
mixing
think
it
we're
up
gonna-
this year.
I think we're about to get a few repeats.
Probably.
Maybe.
So let's call Satan back in to introduce number 2.
Oh, yes, it's time to drop a big old number 2 on all the Player One podcast listeners. So let's go with number 2.
Numero dos.
CJ's gone from sexy to creepy.
That's right.
That's Satan's job, man.
Oh,
What's your
sorry.
What's your number 2? Siege.
Well, my number 2 is a sequel. And it's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is my number 2 as well. Just
Oh
gonna
my
throw that out
goodness.
Oh yeah.
there so we
Wow.
can talk about
Okay.
it
It's
without
not my
waiting.
number 2.
I don't think it's your
I-
number anything. I think it might be a
No.
runner-up at best.
Not even.
In that,
I assume.
not even.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah, my fears for this game were you play Breath of the Wild and it's such a new experience, such a great experience. And I had tried to come back to Breath of the Wild numerous times between its original release and 2023, and it just never took. Like I never felt like I could go back to that world and have it feel the same way as it did back in was it 2017 the Switch came
Was
out?
it that long ago?
God, yeah, I think it was. And so that was my fear with Tears of the Kingdom, that we would come back to this world and it wouldn't feel as fresh and it just wouldn't be as good an experience as it was the first time. And then I played it and discovered that, man, they really did a great job mixing up the mechanics, changing the mechanics in such a way that it is feeling fresh. And the building mechanic that I was kind of hesitant with it because I don't like base building. I don't like
Yeah,
building
same.
things in games in general. But it just is really well done in Tears of the Kingdom, and then you can unlock a sort of pre-made like plan system. You can unlock it as early or as late as you want, really. And I unlocked that, and then things became even easier, and you get plans for certain vehicles and you can build them anytime you want. And oh my gosh, Phil went away.
Hey, he really didn't like Legend of Zelda.
Apparently not. But I just really enjoyed everything about Tears of the Kingdom. The world was familiar but different enough that it felt like experiencing it anew. The
Right.
battle system was, similar but different enough, like combining weapons. And yes, they still had a degradation and they would still break, but you can get around that pretty easily by combining things. And to me, I would pick up everything in Tears of the Kingdom. Like I didn't
Yeah,
discriminate.
same.
I would just
Mhm.
pick up every little thing that I found along the ground, in part because I know that there's going to be a point where I'm going to want that thing to attach it to a shield or a stick or throw it in the depths or any number of things and that became hugely fun. And then I kind of not read a bunch of the previews or reviews when they came out, so I didn't know anything about the depths. And until I played the game, and on the way to the sort of first dungeon, I just decided to jump down one of the big holes in the world. And it wasn't the one in Hyrule Field that everybody kind of jumps down. That's supposed to be the first one you really jump down.
Yeah, they
But,
kind of guide you through the depths there.
They sort of
from
guide
there.
you to go have that be
Yeah.
your first stop.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. Instead, I went and jumped into one that was further along. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And you find out it's a whole nother area
new world.
that mirrors the surface, and it just felt so fresh and new and fun, and just, traversing the depths and discovering new things there, and having it be a different health system, but it made sense in its own way. It's just like that. Somehow they made a game that I didn't think you could improve on, and they made it better somehow.
See, and for me, I think that was the key thing, because as we've talked about many times on this show, I finished Breath of the Wild, but I didn't. By the end of it, I didn't love it. And because of that, I kind of mainlined it, just to get it over with. Right? It was one of those things where it's like, well, I'm a good chunk into this. I'm not really enjoying it all that much anymore. But it's a Zelda game. I want to finish it. I've invested this time already, and then I'll go on for the next 5 years complaining about it. So my going into Tears of the Kingdom, I was cautiously optimistic. The fact that the world was going to be the same, and again, same here. I knew about the Sky Islands because everybody knew about the Sky Islands, but I didn't know anything about the depths. So I was a little bit worried about, going into it. I'm like, God, I hope they fixed or made changes that help me enjoy this more. And you mentioned one key factor there, the ability to combine items with your weapons made a huge difference because of the fact that it actually helped the durability. I mean, it was great that it made them more powerful, or it imbued them with elemental abilities and things like that. That's important. That's great. You wanted to do that, obviously, but for me, it was that I didn't. Weapons got durable, that they lasted long enough that I didn't feel like I was more worried about rotating out weapons and picking up new ones constantly. In fact, it was funny playing through the game. I didn't really start feeling that again until I got the Master Sword. Because while you could combine items with the Master Sword, I don't think it really helped its energy level. So it would run out of energy, which of course, was how they handled the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild, where it didn't break, but you just couldn't use it after a while. So that was the only time where it kind of reared its head. But because of that, I wanted to explore the world, which I didn't want to do in Breath of the Wild. And I ended up, without even using a guide, which was weird for me, because when I was cleaning stuff up at the end, it's like, well, I should probably just use a guide and get this all. I wanted to uncover the entire map. I went and found all the shrines, went and did all the shrines, above and below. I loved figuring some of that stuff out. Having the towers where you get fired up into the air made traversal. I don't like to use fast travel very much. I did use it, but I don't like to use it all that much. But made traversal so much more fun. Where it was just like, if there was something that was even remotely close to one of those towers, I would use it to go get to new areas. And yeah, like the depths too. I mean, the depths did turn into a bit of a slog at the end, because I shouldn't say that. There's a lot to discover down there, but there are big stretches where nothing happens. But when that kind of, I guess, throws it into contrast, because when you do discover like one of the arenas where you have to have a big fight to get something new, or there were those 3 labyrinths that were, would start on the surface and then go to the sky and then go to the depths. Like, those were fantastic. I just loved the way those were designed. And I think that was the other reason, the other thing that I found so compelling about Tears of the Kingdom over Breath of the Wild was that it didn't feel like Breath of the Wild had that stuff. Like you had the beasts that you had to deal with, and that wasn't enough. I wanted to I wanted to have something a little bit more engaging as sort of the, the different levels in the area, and like whether it was even making your way up into the sky for the sky, I forget, for the boss up there in the sky, like the big ship. The ship itself wasn't all that involving, but the getting there was the fun part.
Yeah.
Right, or the pyramid in the desert, that was fantastic. Like, I really enjoyed all of that stuff that just wasn't in Tears of the Kingdom. So I think they did such an amazing job of taking what could have felt like an add-on pack and would have sold great and would have been fine for 90% of their fans if that's all it was, and made it feel like sort of the ultimate version of the game they released 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It was just a perfect refinement. So, and it's funny because when the year-end reports came out for all the different services, my Switch report, I mean, there's just 3 months where I did nothing but play Zelda. And I knew, and there was nothing else I was playing at the time. Like, I've forsaking all other games so I could just play Zelda. And I was playing it in lunch hour, and I was playing it anytime I could find a free 20 minutes. I would fire up Tears of the Kingdom and play it. I just adored that game. So good. So that was my number 3 as well. Which means, or number 2, sorry. Which means, Phil.
Yes.
Your number 2 is.
My number 2 is Mario Wonder.
Yeah, I figured.
I love a Mario game. I love a 2D Mario game. And when a 2D Mario game looks as good as Wonder does, and boy, does it look nice. I love that they have finally given themselves the freedom to branch off from the kind of new Super Mario Brothers aesthetic, get a little more playful with it, a little more cartoony, give the characters a little more expression, allow them to experiment a little more with what
Boy, do they ever.
Yeah, with what the world of Super Mario can be. The wonder effects, all the varied gameplay elements that occur when you collect those flowers, and you have no idea what's going to happen when you trigger one of those effects. It always keeps you on your toes. The gameplay is challenging, but never to the point of seeming unfair until you get to that like super extra secret bonus level at the end where I finally just gave up on the game.
Yep.
But no, it is a top-notch platformer. It boggles my mind that you two have not played through it, because it is a top tier Mario game.
Top shelf.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's going to be, I mean, I think we all know it's not going to be my number 1. It'll probably be like one of my favorite games that didn't come out in 2024.
There you go.
On next year.
So you'll be talking about it next year.
A preview for next
I
year,
really
so.
feel like that's the case. Yeah.
Favorite game that wasn't released in 2024.
It's a high probability.
I hope so, Greg.
But who else? Who knows? Well, I mean, what else might be coming out next year?
Well, I mean, whatever's coming out next year doesn't affect your
It's true.
favorite game.
But I also want to play Ragnarok next year. I haven't done that yet. So
well, there you go. Play both simultaneously. See what happens.
And then play that Valhalla expansion or whatever.
no, definitely not playing that. Okay, that leads us to Satan. We need someone to announce our number 1 games of
We have
2023.
the tip top of the Mip Mop. The very best game ever created. The finest game in all the 7 realms. I refer, of course, to the Player One podcast's number 1.
Numero uno. CJ sounds like
You know what's
what's
really unnerving
What's that?
is when you're playing Uno, the card game with CJ, and he gets down to just having one card in his hand. He always numero uno.
and I assume he doesn't break eye contact when he says it.
Oh no, are you kidding?
Of course not.
No.
Yeah.
One
Listen,
hand slowly goes under the table.
Mm.
Numero uno.
we're gonna change things up here a little bit,
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
just because of a hunch.
A
Uh-huh.
hunch, you say?
hunch
And we're
bunch?
gonna have Phil go
Uh-huh.
first this time. What
Well,
was
I'm
your
gonna-
number one? We all know what it was, but let's talk about
It's
it.
true.
Okay.
Before I get into my number one, though, I
Hmm.
would just like to say, for as much hullabaloo as CJ made earlier of, who knows, my top 10 list that
It's
I
exactly
gave to
what it
Giant
was.
Bomb
Yeah.
might be different.
Could change.
Hasn't changed a lick.
No, it hasn't.
It reminds me of when he says, "I don't think I'll buy this."
Yeah.
And then he buys
That
3
just
copies.
means
Yeah.
You know, CJ,
Mm.
if you were any different, you wouldn't be CJ. And we
That's
love you
true.
for it.
Thank you.
We poke fun, but we love you for it. So, Phil,
Yes,
Hi-Fi
sir.
Rush. Tell us about Hi-Fi Rush.
my number one game of the year, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
That's not right.
That's not
They
true.
In
fixed
Bizarro
all
world.
the problems I had with Breath of the
He stole my
Wild.
script. He's like Melania Trump. She stole my script too. Ask her; she'll tell you. Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom was her second favorite game of the
That's
year.
the one.
Oh.
It's Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is my game of the year.
Yeah.
This was predestined
Surprising
back in
nobody.
January.
And
When
if you want to know why, just go read Giant Bomb.
that's the thing. I wrote a whole big write-up about it. Maybe I should
Yeah.
just read it.
No, let's not do that.
I'm not gonna
No.
read it.
No.
But I wrote a nice big article
Oh,
about
you did.
why I love Hi-Fi Rush. You know what? I posted a link to that on the old Blue Sky social network.
Yep.
And friend of the show, longtime listener Scoop Jessica, responded with a very enthusiastic all caps saying, "Phil, this is really great." I forget the exact quote, but she's
She's like, "Have you ever worked on a magazine?"
like, yeah, she was like, "Oh, this is a really great article." She was very excited. And I was, I was very appreciative. Thank you very much. I responded. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, wait a second. She sounds surprised.
We all were.
I'm a professional writer. I've been a professional
Well, I
writer.
mean,
Uh,
you haven't worked at a magazine that didn't shut down while you were there, so we just kind of assumed.
Well, I mean, statistically speaking, though, magazines, a volatile
But while you were there,
medium.
Yeah.
Look, I can't
I
help
know
that
you
I was
love it when we
born
bring
towards
this up.
towards the end of magazines' long reign as a trusted news source.
trusted newsy.
Yeah.
First time I met Phil, he was wearing the bowler hat with a little press ticket sticking out the top.
Extra, read all about it. Bethesda releases Game of the Year in January.
Video games, murder simulators.
The Fat Cats up on Capitol Hill are debating whether
Fat cats.
these digital entertainment devices should be regulated. Let's see what the boys have to say. Hi-Fi Rush is wonderful. I love Hi-Fi Rush very, very much. It makes me happy as I play it. It makes me happy when I think back upon my time playing it.
Pretty impressive that
Hmm.
it came out so early in the year because, as I mentioned before, and we talked about last week, recency bias is definitely a thing in these
It is
lists.
absolutely a
Yeah.
thing.
So the fact that you liked it that much that it stayed top of mind all year is
And it-
impressive.
And it absolutely did, and that's the thing. It was kind of funny. In the comments section of my Giant Bomb article, some Giant Bomb reader posted something saying that they also loved the game. It may have been their favorite of the year, but they also mentioned something about how, it's I have a feeling that if it was released later in the year, it would have been talked about more during Game of the Year discussion. And yes, that is
Yeah.
absolutely true.
That's probably true.
I believe that 100%. But yeah, I loved it. It's a character action game, which is a genre that I do enjoy. See the Bayonetta and such. I love the rhythm-based combat. It did take me a while to sort of click with it, to kind of get the vibe. I was, and I mentioned all this in the article as well, but I was probably about halfway through the game before it started really clicking with me, and I started getting good scores at the end of the battles. But yeah, once it clicks, and you really start having to juggle the buttons, and I guess CJ doesn't like this type of thing, so I get it. You don't like Bayonetta, right?
I do not.
You don't like Devil May Cry, right?
Nope.
Yeah, you don't like having to sort of master a combat system. It's just totally fair. Totally fair. But I do to an extent. And certainly it was the case here. And yeah, once it clicked with me, and it does, by the end of the game, you really feel like your fingers are just gonna tie themselves in knots, just because you're pulling off combos and flipping over enemies and calling out your buddies to run distraction in the heat of the moment. But it's so satisfying when you do, and because that's all bopping along to the beat of each stage, and the world, which is constantly kind of pulsating with the rhythm of the action, it feels so satisfying. The characters, as they're all so charming. They're such wonderful characters. It's beautiful looking. It's bright. It's colorful. The characters are so much fun. It's so funny, both in terms of the animation and the writing. And yeah, it sticks with me. And I have gone back. I mean, I played it on Game Pass, of course, when it came out. I did. I guess it's technically not double dipping because I didn't really pay for it the first time, but I bought it on Steam just to have to own a version of the game on the PC.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I wish they would do a physical release of it. I'd buy it again. I'd buy a physical Xbox version of it. But and I've even gone back and to YouTube and watched like long plays, just jumping around watching some of my favorite bits, just reliving the cartoony action and just watching the cutscenes again. And it's wonderful. The ending, I'll admit it, you're a little teary-eyed at the ending. There's a beautiful moment at the end where all the characters come together to help save the day, and it's just it's a little tugging at your heartstrings, and it's a great game. I love Hi-Fi Rush.
Have
Go
you
read the
did you
Giant
watch-
Bomb article? What's
Did
that?
you watch the AIAS? They do a podcast called The Game Maker's Notebook. They did an interview with John Johannes, who's the director of Hi-Fi Rush, and just hearing about the creation of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
have
was
not.
a guest on the 8-4 podcast as well, talking about this, and it's just amazing, like how he just mentioned it casually to another person, like, "Hey, we should make this game. What if we did this kind of thing?" And then
Man.
after working on Evil Within and like becoming like a director at one point within Tango, like then being able to like take the idea that he had just completely on a lark and make it is just it's a great story, and worth checking out.
I need to go
both of those.
listen to that.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
link
I've
to
not
it in the show
I've not
notes.
seen that, so
Yeah.
that is wonderful. So yeah, game of the year. Unsurprising, to be sure, I would imagine, but it is what it is.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
So you two talk about Spider-Man now.
I was gonna say, so CJ,
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2,
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
2,
Marvel's
Spider-Man
Spider-Man 2.
2. Yeah,
A great
here.
game.
Yes.
A great game.
A
It may
great
have been my
game.
number 3, but that's only because This year is so full of outstanding.
And that's one of the things that made this year great.
Yeah.
So many outstanding games. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I can't be mad at you guys for choosing this as number one because it's a wonderful game.
So, CJ, why is
Mhm.
Spider-Man 2 your number one?
For a couple of reasons. First of all, it's an open world game that respects your time. And I appreciate that an awful lot. Like in open world games, I feel like it's too easy for me to just get lost and not see the forest for the trees sort of situation where I don't
Well, in
see
this, there's not really a forest
the
because you're in New
critical
York
path.
No, unless you
Well,
go through
the
Central Park.
urban jungle
It's not really a
of
forest, though. It's a park.
the urban jungle of
Oh,
Manhattan.
Urban jungle love.
Craven has faced the many challenges of the jungle, but can he handle the urban jungle?
Concrete canyons of the urban jungle.
Oh,
Ooh,
we should be writing marketing copy for Insomniac.
that's right. That's right. No, I
Brian
mean,
knows where to find us.
I felt like it was a perfect game that kind of let you have as much or as little of it as you want. And I love that about Insomniac's Spider-Man series in general, but I love that they continued down that path in basically the third Spider-Man game that they've done. Like, and they haven't changed it. Like, so many times I think with sequels, there's a tendency to like change things up too much, or like, Dead Space 3.
Yeah, for the
Make
for
it
the
a
fear
certain-
of being accused of being the same game again.
Right, exactly. For
Yeah.
the fear of exactly that. But I felt like this game let you experience it the way that you wanted to, and also rewarded you at like every turn, every corner. You're unlocking new moves, you're unlocking new costumes or variants of costumes, and you're having fun with that. And you can do or not do any number of side missions that you want. And to me, they all felt like a nice variety. And I didn't really stray with the side missions too much off the main path. I would do one or two of the side bits, but I didn't really focus on those at all, which I think was good. I think that helped me get through the game faster for sure, but also it kept me interested in the game because the story I think is fantastic. And I'm not a comic book person. I am not at all into Marvel ephemera. I don't care about the movies. I don't care about the TV shows. I don't care about any of that. But this to me was still a compelling story and a fun romp around Manhattan. And the bits that
A roping good time
Hmm.
around the Big Apple.
a roping good time. But like the side bits with other characters, I thought were super fun. And
Oh, yeah.
you don't get a lot of that in a lot of games, right? When they have side characters, usually they feel so tacked on and boring.
Yes,
And
yes.
in this game, they did not at all. And even the bits like the Mysterio stuff felt really fun and different.
There was a plot line running through it.
A plot
Yeah.
line running through it, exactly, on all of these counts. And I just love that about this game. And
Yep.
I didn't use any of the fast travel stuff, even though I unlocked a bunch of
No.
it. I just swung through the world.
But I mean,
Yeah.
and we've talked about that for years now, from the first one to Miles Morales to now, is that the greatest thing that those games have going for them is that the traversal is so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just so much fun to swing through the city.
Well, and even the addition in this game of the gliding
Mhm.
with the wind tunnels.
It's done great.
It's so much fun to play. Like every corner of this game is so much fun to play. Like the combat
Yeah.
system is great. Unlocking all those
Mhm.
moves is great, even though I didn't use probably half of them. I still unlocked them. And The bosses were great. I thought all of that was just really well paced and fun, and I enjoyed the twists and turns of the story. I enjoyed the set pieces, from that first Sandman fight to the rest of them. Like, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
And even I think it's something in game design where it's like, show your best stuff early on, because that's all that people are going to play up to. But with
Right.
this
Yeah.
game, they started it off with a bang for sure. But some of the best stuff was later. And you look at the sort of trophy information on the PlayStation, and you see that like 75% of the people who played Spider-Man 2 have finished it, and it's like, yep,
That's wild.
that's exact like, but most games don't get that, right?
No.
Like, most games, you're lucky if like half the players finish.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to the pacing and just how well everything is done in Spider-Man 2. And it's awesome. And again, there's a game maker's toolkit with Brian and Tahar talking with Ted Price, and that's another great episode. He's done, I think, 2 or 3 interviews with Ted at this point, and they're all
Oh,
great.
I should
And
look at that or listen to that.
worth listening to for sure, especially since like the Sandman fight apparently was the first thing they knew exactly how they wanted to start the game, and like
Oh, yeah.
everything kind of took off from there. And it's just great to like listen to that stuff. And man, Insomniac is just firing on all cylinders, and I hope they are never the kind of team where it takes them like 10 years to make another one of these. Like,
Right.
game development so often now like feels like with Zelda, like it's going to take so many more years to make a sequel to this. And obviously, Insomniac's made 3 Spider-Man games in the time it took Nintendo to make 2 Zelda games. But
But
I want
think
more of this style of game, I think is what I'm saying. This package.
I think too that Insomniac really ran the risk of the same thing that Nintendo was flirting with Tears of the Kingdom, where this, they're returning to this world for the 3rd time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it got bigger and they definitely expanded it this time because you could get off the island, which I don't believe you could do in the previous 2 games.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but still, I mean, what else do you do? They're in New York. It's Spider-Man, of course, he's in New York. But either way, they definitely flirted with that. But I think everything you just said, I agree with. The gameplay is so refined at this point. The things that they added really brought it sort of to the next level. I felt like Pete and Miles played just different enough that they felt familiar, and that it was easy to swap between them and not feel like you had to relearn controls. But I think it had a lot to do with personality. I mean, we talked about that too when Miles Morales came out, that one of the things I think we all loved was even his battle animations. They just looked like a kid, like
Right.
a young kid who was really excited about these powers. And I feel they almost dip into like the Spider-Verse here a little bit. The Spider-Verse films, where like some of the camera angles they use for some of Miles's kick animations and things like that, it wouldn't look out of place in one of those movies.
Right.
It's that sort of stylized look, which is fantastic. But the thing that I've always loved about, where I loved a lot about the first 2 Spider-Man games, was of course the story. Phil, you mentioned with the end of Hi-Fi Rush getting a little bit teared up, and I mean the ending of the first Spider-Man from Insomniac with Aunt May was heartbreaking. And there were moments like that in Miles as well. I mean, with his dad. And they just kind of dialed it up to 11 here. And going into Spider-Man 2, I was really interested to see how they were going to make Miles and Peter feel different. And I thought, and I know, Phil, that you don't necessarily agree with this 100% based on a conversation we had in a previous episode, but I thought they killed it. Because Peter, they were dealing so much with the fallout of what had happened in the previous 2 games. Peter's still haunted by the fact that he could have, I guess, spoiler warning, the fact that he could have saved May, but he chose, the greater good over saving one person. And whereas Miles, a younger man, and he's like really eaten up with the idea of revenge against, was it Mr. Negative, I think is what his name was.
Yeah.
um and he sort of gets that opportunity in the game, and I feel like the storylines and the plot lines were just different enough that both of them were compelling. But on top of that, there's this sort of mentorship situation happening between Peter and Miles, where Peter's a father figure. He's replaced Miles's father. And when he starts sort of going bad because of the symbiote, like you can really feel sort of the heartache that it's causing Miles during that whole process. And also Peter in that moment feeling like, I didn't ask to be your dad. Like, stop being this little puppy that's following me around and looking to me for every little problem you have. And it's just so brilliantly written. That to me was the big thing. And the handoff, at the end where Peter's sort of handing the mantle of Spider-Man to Miles was a great scene. They really put Peter through the ringer, where it's like halfway through the game, it seems like his life is perfect and everything's great, and like finally everything's going his way, and then of course it all falls apart in Peter Parker fashion. And it kind of goes even further than that, CJ. Like, you're talking about Mysterio and how, because I remember in the first game, I think it was Black Cat, where there was a lot of these little side missions that had to do with Black Cat, but she wasn't really in the game much. There wasn't much of a story there, right? They really alleviated that problem in this game. I mean, Sandman's Crystal Hearts, I guess, part kind of you could say that, but there was still a bit of story that was unlocked every time you found one.
Mm-hmm.
But like the Black Cat stuff was great. The Mysterio stuff was great. I loved how some of the Rogues Gallery were sort of like post supervillain trying to, sort of living with the consequences of their actions or being taken advantage of in Mysterio's case, and just sort of trying to get back into the world and realizing how hard that is because of who they were. And even when it got super dark and we're starting to kill off some of these villains, which felt very very comic booky and very non-comic booky all at the same time. It's so good. It matched all of my expectations going into it, and my expectations were really high. So what if I'm so excited for Wolverine whenever that's supposed to come out, because if they can do with Wolverine what they've done with Spider-Man, it's going to be so great.
Oh yeah.
So when does that come out?
I hope we don't have to wait too long for it. They haven't said.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I haven't looked at any of the leaks stuff that happened, any of that.
No, I'm not. I haven't looked at any of that either.
I don't want to, because
I want it to be as much of a surprise as possible.
Yeah. The kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, Greg, one of the plot threads in this game that I really liked how they handled was Miles and his quest for revenge, and that big final confrontation he had with Mr. Negative, and just the way that all played out, and where, again, spoilers, where you got like an actual, like, really genuine feeling kind of redemption arc.
Yes.
For Mr. Negative, but also Miles kind of standing up and just saying, like,
I'll never be able to forgive you.
Yeah. You had your redemption arc,
but revenge isn't going to eat my soul for the rest of my life either.
But we're not buddies now.
Right.
And I just thought that was really well handled. Great. Yeah.
Because it would have been really easy for him to be like, to write it in such a way as like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
It's like, that would not be the character and it wouldn't feel real. And
right. Yeah. Just really well handled.
So my game of the year as well.
Excellent.
This has been a long episode, and listen, we got one more category, boys.
What?
Time for number 0.
What is your most anticipated release of 2024?
We're not going to talk about the runners up.
Oh, you can throw some runners up. CJ's got 5. Go to Giant Bomb. You'll find them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, there were just so many games this year that like 5 doesn't really tell the whole story, right? Because there were just so many good indie games and uh like Dredge, one of my
Mhm.
favorite games, like the horror fishing game. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Dave the Diver, fantastic game that came to Switch later in the year, but I played a bunch on Steam. The Dead Space remake, obviously, fantastic game. I am so close to the end of that game, but I have not yet finished it. I loved Exoprimal. That was a big surprise for me. In the middle part of the year, I thought that was super fun. Capcom kind of taking a chance on a new IP, which you don't often see too
Not so
of.
much anymore.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, great asymmetrical multiplayer game from Gun. I think it's a fantastic game to see what they've been able to do with just the license to one movie, not an entire franchise, because they only have the license for the very first movie.
Mm.
Uh, so that's great. I loved Deceive Inc. I loved Little Cities VR on the Quest. Such a great sort of chill out city builder game. And I want to shout out Fortnite as well, because Fortnite Festival and Lego Fortnite and Rocket Racing have really like got me playing. Oh wow, what's that? It's a Lego llama that Phil has.
It's the little Fortnite llama
Fortnite llama. Yeah.
made out of Lego.
Yeah. It's I mean, Fortnite has been my comfort game for now about a year and a half because of Zero Build, and for them to build in Rock Band, which is another one of my comfort games, into Fortnite, it's just like it's a one-stop shop now. I'm just going to be playing Fortnite for the rest of my days, I guess. But yeah, so those are my kind of runners up.
How about you, Phil?
Well, gosh, I didn't prepare a list of every
Neither did
other
I.
game I played this year.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
like
not every
CJ
game
did.
I played, but
CJ
But-
plays a lot of games.
He
I
does.
I liked a lot of those.
But I am going to give a big old shout out to the PlayStation 5 port of Rogue Legacy 2 that happened this year. Good job.
Nice.
Any excuse to buy that game again. And on a similar note, this year I saw the release of the Return to Castlevania DLC
Mm-hmm.
for my beloved Dead Cells, which breathed new life into a game that didn't actually need new life breathed into it because it's an incredible game. But to have my beloved Dead Cells meet the classic Castlevania motif was just spectacular. I was so pleased with Return to Castlevania. So
I'm going to say I only have a few that almost made my top 5. We already spoke about the making of Karateka. Super
Yeah.
looking forward to the Jeff Minter stuff that they're going to be doing this year.
Yeah.
I want to call out Metroid Prime Remastered, another game that it had been long enough that I'd played it that I really enjoyed playing it again. It was a nice excuse to get to play it again, and with modern controls that weren't weren't necessarily motion based, although you could do that if you wanted to. And call it the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters.
Oh yes.
They were a joy. I mean, I've only almost beaten the second one, but what I've played so far of beating the first one and playing through most of the second one, just a joy to play. And I'm looking forward to. Actually, that's what I'm using my PlayStation Portal for. It's just to play a little bit of Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster every now and then.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So those are my runners up. Okay, it's been 2 hours and 20 minutes. Let's
Oh
do
my
this.
god.
Most anticipated release of 2024. CJ, I know you have a raft of games to talk about here. Let's pick a couple.
Well, I'm going to say my most anticipated of next year is Luigi's Mansion 2 HD.
Yeah,
Sure it is.
And yeah, I mean, I love the Luigi's Mansion series just in general. 2 was the sequel that I never thought we would get, and then we
Right.
got, and I cannot wait to play it again. It's going to be fantastic. Man, I wish they would also remake the first one for Switch, but
Yeah.
they just did that for 3DS fairly recently, so they're probably not going to do that. So, but yeah, that's my sort of number one. Some other games, Star Wars Outlaws, I think, from Ubi looks great. Like the
hope that's
little
good.
gameplay segment that they showed looked awesome, and
Yep.
I'm super excited for that. Plucky Squire and Pepper Grinder, 2 games from Devolver that I think look amazing. And Plucky Squire, Devolver just did like a Christmas or a holiday broadcast where they showed off more of Plucky Squire, and it looks amazing. Can't wait for that. Same with Pepper Grinder. Very excited about those 2. So that's a couple things off my list.
All right. Phil, how about you?
Well, I'm just going to take a moment to note that my most anticipated game of 2023
Rogue
that I
Legacy.
picked from this time last year. No, it was not. It was a game that is still not out. It was Mina the Hollower.
Mina the Hollower. All right.
Remember
don't
Mina the
remember it.
Hollower?
No.
Yacht
That's
Club Games.
That's the game from Yacht Club Games, the Shovel Knight
Oh,
people.
right.
It looks like a Link's Awakening homage with the little mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Still not out. So
Still your most.
I guess we can
anticipated game?
carry that over to this year. But my actual most anticipated game of next year is indeed the Plucky Squire.
Yeah.
I am so excited about Plucky Squire. It is a beautiful looking game. That kind of just the storybook visuals of it are incredible. The art in that game is, of course, by James Turner, who used to work at a company that I am actually quite familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Used to work at the Pokemon company, designing Pokemon. Now, yeah, seeing his incredible artwork in a this kind of like little action platformer kind of world is just I can't wait. Absolutely can't wait for.
If
Plucky
you
Squire.
missed that Devolver broadcast,
Yeah,
try to
I did
catch
not.
That.
I did not see
like a
that.
bunch-
So
yeah, it's an update on the development for that with a bunch
Do
of new
I-
footage. Looks great.
do I want to see it though?
I don't know if you do.
That's
Maybe
the
you
thing. I'm
don't.
kind of like
You
I'm
wanna go
almost
in
kind of ready to go
cold.
media blackout on it.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But because here's the problem. Hi-Fi Rush spoiled me.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Now you want to go into everything blind?
well, now I just want. I don't want to
Shadow
know about
drops?
anything till I can buy it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just it. It's like Plucky Squire. They announced it and they were showing off footage of it ages ago,
Yeah.
and I'm just sitting here, just like, come on.
Right.
Like it'd be nice to just like wake up one day and they'd be like, "Hey, look at this awesome, adorable looking game," and I'd be like, "Oh, that's great. Here, you
Buy
want it?"
now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I'm. Part of me wants to watch the more info about Plucky Squire, but part of me is just like, let's just sit
Get
back and just see it all when it comes out. But we'll see.
Yeah.
What about you, Greg?
Kind of the same as CJ. I'm looking at a remake, a Nintendo remake, and that is Paper Mario: 1,000-Year Door.
Yeah.
One of the all-time great RPGs, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that was a great game.
It really, really was. And I am so excited that it's coming out next year. I'll definitely day one be there to play it and play right through it. And I really hope, God, I would love to see Nintendo do something with the Mario and Luigi games next.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like, I don't know how popular those games were.
I mean,
But they were brilliant. They were fun. They were
there's
funny.
what, like 4 of them?
Yeah, I think. And the problem is some of them are DS games and 3DS games. 3DS
Yeah.
games. So, that's a shame. But super excited to play Thousand Year Door again next year. Again, it'll be the first time playing it in probably 20 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
I haven't played it
it's
since
right in that sweet spot.
back in the day. So
So yeah, that's me. I
Definitely a
think,
good one.
guys, that was a show.
you did it.
That's it.
It was a long one. I hope you enjoyed listening to that. I love our top 5 game shows. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
they're always fun.
now I'm going to hand the reins over to CJ.
Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a question for us or would like to comment on something you heard, you can direct it to @P1 Podcast on various social media platforms, but mostly Threads or X. We also have an intranet website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find our contact information. You'll find blog entries about Sega CD stuff from Mr. Greg Seward. You'll find Generation 16 episodes as they happen, and you'll also find show notes and links to the things that we talked about during this episode, although it'll be a lot shorter so as to not spoil the
Yes.
the top 5s that we talked about. But some things will be in the show notes. And there's also a link to our Discord server where we can discuss this episode with us and our other listeners.
If you would like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by visiting player1podcast.com or by loading up your favorite podcast listening app. We're also on Spotify. You can like us on Facebook. You can watch video archives of our show on the youtubes.com/P1 Podcast, or you can watch us live most weeks, not this week, because we're doing our special, best of the year show. But most weeks you can watch us live on the the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Twitch.televisions. Follow one of our many the social media accounts to find out when we're doing our next live show. Typically, again, not this week, but typically it is Sunday evenings at 5:30 specific time. So join us, won't you? And I'll tell you what, if you like what you've heard, and how could you, head over to patreon.com/P1 Podcast. Throw a few shekels our way. We always appreciate your fine financial support. It keeps us dripping in games that we can talk about all year long. I mean, sometimes, not usually. Sometimes we'll use show funds for games, but
True.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, your Patreon support goes a long way to help keep our show going. Every week it keeps us streaming and all those costs that CJ has to deal with in running a podcast. But I'll tell you what, friendos, we don't just take without giving. Because if you are a Patreon supporter of the $5 tier,
Cheap.
you gain access to a special weekly bonus episode that we record right after this. Even on days when we record a 2.5-hour show, we're going to record right after this. We play games crackwise, having fun doing all the stuff we can't do on the regular show. CJ, do we have a game?
We do.
The
Phil.
first game of the year?
We do indeed. It is a quiz.
Uh-huh.
A Jeopardy quiz
Oh my.
based on the games of the year or decade from the Discord. I think we've done one of these before,
Oh God.
but it is another one where we get
Is this one of
Two.
those ones where it's just going to be a bunch of like Discord in jokes and we're not going to
Yes.
know any of it?
Yes.
I hope not.
Who sent it in?
Mike. This is from Mike. So I
Maybe.
don't think it will
Okay.
be.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Your CJ's best friend, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
We'll see.
CJ.
Yeah.
I know this might require you to get up out of your chair.
Ooh.
We'll do that next week.
Okay.
I know what you're
Oh,
talking
we're
about.
doing that next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay tuned next week to
So-
figure out what the hell we're talking about.
We're talking about something, though. I'll
We're
tell you that.
teasing
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. If you have a couple bucks left over, you can head over to patreon.com/Greg Seward. to help support Greg's outstanding, and it is outstanding, web series about North America's favorite runner-up, the Sega Genesis.
Thank you, Phil. And if you are a patron supporter of the $5 variety,
That sounds so cheap.
it is so cheap.
What a deal.
A deal at twice the price.
Mm-hmm.
You get access to the Almost Weekly Commute, which is a series of vlogs that I do talking about the stuff that I'm working on, talking about my memories working in the games industry, talking about what I really think about Phil and CJ.
Oh, yeah.
It's too hot for YouTube, which
Too
is why
cold
it's
to
on
hold.
Patreon. Nice. Please support the show.
There it is. Is that it for our first show of the year?
That's it.
CJ,
Yeah.
as always, thank you as we enter 2024.
Thank you, Phil.
Of course. And Gregory.
Yo.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, Philip.
Of course. And as always, a big old thank you to you, our wonderful, wonderful listeners. Yes, you. Every single darn one of you. As always, please take care of yourself, your loved ones, your family, your friends. Be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself as we enter this new year. My goodness. And we hope to see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.